All right. Well, it has been a long, long, long regular season, and 161 and 8 innings later, because I guess we still have a suspended game we didn't finish, but who really gives a shit at this point? The Mets are now done for the 2023 season, and we're moving on to better things. We've got a new front office coming in, but we are going to reflect back for the final time for every single player that played for this godforsaken garbage team that was old as dirt, and we're going to give them their final grades, break down everything. We'll talk about the storylines around them as well. We'll also talk about the latest news with Buck Showalter first and all that stuff. For those of you who have any questions who are watching live, we're probably going to star most of them and get to them at the end. So if you see that we're kind of ignoring something in the chat, don't worry, we will get to it. But other than that, let's get started with the Mets regular season grades, and we'll also talk about some other Mets news. Mets Weekly is back. We're finally back. We took a hiatus. So let's roll the intro. Let's go. Okay, so for those of you who are new and for those of you who have not seen us in a while, I apologize for that, but we are now back to do a nice stream, talk about everything that's been going on recently. But other than that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. How do you feel 161 and 8 innings later? Andrew, I'll start with you. How do you feel going into the next chapter of Mets land?
I mean,
done this in a while.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a minute. It's the same old thing. Again, we thought, hey, last year was the beginning of consistent playoff appearances and being competitive for it to blow up right in our faces. And we're brought back down to reality of back to what we've been noticing and used to for the last 15 to 20 years of this franchise of underachieving and just playing downright awful baseball. But it's over. And for me personally, I haven't watched a goddamn game since the Kansas City series because I was in attendance for all 3 of those games when we got swept by the Royals. So, yeah, that took the break, and it was good. I still watched the Twitter highlights, but mercifully it's over. And obviously David Stearns coming in. We'll see who the new manager is. Hopefully it's someone that has a connection to David Stearns. And there's hopefully maybe this is the chapter we start of consistently being a playoff team and not being the team that everyone just makes fun of.
Would be nice for a change. Frank?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive disappointment. We talked about it from the beginning. When you put in this kind of investment, highest payroll in MLB history, you're looking for at least at minimum a playoff berth. To be so far out of it so early on into the season, like Andrew said, by the time you're at that midway point, round trade deadline, season over, I mean, that's just extremely unacceptable. And you know what? This is going to be that next chapter. Buck Showalter gone. David Stearns in. I mean, we had our questions about the Mets going into this year because of how veteran heavy they went, keeping Max Scherzer, adding Justin Verlander, basically keeping the same team as we talked about on numerous occasions, and it didn't work out for them. And I really like what they did at the deadline, getting a lot of young pieces. So we'll see what happens next year with those young pieces. I mean, we saw some guys this year we're going to talk about if they're going to be factors next year. And what does Stearns do? I mean, the main thing that I want to see with David Stearns, I'm sure everyone wants to see, is that pitching lab that we always call it. I mean, these pitchers that you probably never heard of, all of a sudden they're productive arms. Guys who have been struggling, they come to the organization, all of a sudden they find something good out of them and they're pitching well. That's what the Mets need because we saw them invest so much into their pitching for it to not come through. If you could just get a whole big group of guys that just no matter what, that next man up mentality, you have a lot of good arms, it's going to keep you in games. And then you know what? You figure out the offense, you have good players all around. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So that's what I really want to see because as we go into these grades, a lot of the pitchers that the Mets brought out there, a lot of these extra guys, very low grades. I mean, they're just not quality at all, not major league pitchers, as we like to say. So that's what I want to see. I want to see them find those hidden gems, because where are the hidden gems? Is DJ Stewart a hidden gem? We'll get to him later. But other than that, it's just like you never see a guy out of nowhere become a big-time player for the Mets. And that's what I'm hoping that Stearns could establish. And I really want to see what they do with the manager. I think that's the big one. I want to see them aim younger, because even with Buck Showalter, manager of the year and what have you, you knew it wasn't the long-term solution. You knew he was only going to be here a couple of years because of his age. So I want to see a guy who's going to be here for a long time. And again, finally some stability. I mean, every year we're having the same conversation. New president of baseball ops, new guy to bring the front office. Every couple of years, we're talking about who's going to be new manager. You can't have that every offseason. I mean, you got to have those things in place to just be able to focus on the players. And I hope that not having Buck around, they won't be as veteran heavy. When the young players are doing well, they don't just stick with the veterans for no reason. So I do want to see some changes be made, but that's for next year. Right now, this year is over.
Yeah, I'm in relief at this point. I mean, all I was really seeing towards the end was basically just wanting to see the young guys play at this point and just see what we had for the future. Most of it was in the minor leagues, but obviously we had some of the young guys. We had, the big four obviously all up here towards the end here. I think we can all talk about, Buck Showalter at this point, where it has been announced today, before this stream started, it was about before the game began today, that Buck Showalter will be leaving the organization and he will not be managing the Mets. I don't know if he was fired or they just mutually parted ways, but as for Buck Showalter, I think I'm just going to start this one off and then we'll obviously get into the grades, but there's a lot that you can say here, and I feel like we most likely will be repeating ourselves of what we have talked about with Buck Showalter, of how he's kind of managed this team and kind of the viewing of how a lot of fans see him and then some other fans don't see him. First of all, I'll just start it off here, where this was not the guy to hire if you wanted an experienced manager, in my opinion. It still isn't. With Bruce Bochy still being available, that probably was the better solution, in my opinion. I don't know if he just did not want to come here to New York or something, but obviously Buck Showalter, he's managed in New York before. They saw him as experienced as compared to the guys like Rojas and guys like, Beltran, who didn't have any experience and still doesn't. Mickey Callaway. I mean, as opposed to that, they wanted a guy with experience. Overall, with me, the experience that Buck had, it's not winning experience. He has had one playoff win in 22 seasons. Overall, he's a perennial loser. And I don't understand why he gets so much praise that he does. Just because somebody's been in the league for a long time and have been around the game for a long time, that doesn't mean that they are a legend. Okay. I mean, we'll talk about him later, but, Drew Smith's been around for a while. That doesn't make him a legend, he's not good. So overall, Buck Showalter, I never thought he was a good manager. Just overall, I think the experience is definitely what drew Mets fans to think that, he was the right guy for the job. But it just was not going to be the guy to bring you a World Series. Frankels.
Yeah, I mean, my only hope was the trend of, Buck Showalter, he comes to a team, helps them out, gets them on track, and then he leaves, and then the next year they win the World Series. I don't think that's the path that we're on right now. I don't think we can keep that streak going. I understand what they were going for. I know Steve Cohen was looking for the veteran guy, the household name that everyone heard of, just try to please that group of Met fans. Again, I mean, I wasn't totally on board for it. I wasn't totally against it. But again, I think that now they really do have to aim a little younger. I am curious to see what they end up doing. I mean, there's been those rumors of Craig Counsell. I don't think that's a guarantee, just because Stearns was with the Brewers, that counts with the Brewers. I don't think that's necessarily the exact thing that can happen. It might, but I'm just very curious to see what they do. It obviously didn't work out. We had our critiques of Buck Showalter, throughout the season, as far as a lot of his in-game managing. And to me, again, particularly with the way he handled the young players and the inconsistencies in the lineup and things like that. We talked about so many times. You have a young player have a great game, next day on the bench. Just that I never quite understood. I always felt that you should ride the hot hand. Baseball is primarily a mental game. And how you ever going to have, a good mindset if you feel like whenever you play well, it's not rewarded. So I just didn't like that system that he had going. But, I mean, it's over now. Again, like he won Manager of the Year for winning a lot of regular season games. But all in all, we look at how they played poorly in the postseason, how bad this year was. You don't look at this tenure in a good fashion afterwards. I mean, it's definitely something that's very not going to remember like, wow, remember when we had Buck Showalter? Like, that's not the way you feel at all. Again, we're just looking forward to that next chapter. At this point, you really got to make a lot of changes when you have a season that was such a failure like this. So this was just one of those parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'll be perceived as somebody who, he led us to 101 wins. And that's something that we talk about now where overall that wasn't good enough. I mean, when they got to the playoffs, they folded. I mean, let's not say, we have a few Braves fans in here talking shit about it. Last year, we were up 10.5 games in that division, and we just completely blew it. But granted, the Braves were just an unbelievable baseball team and had a ridiculous historic stretch. But, at that point, the Mets just kind of just laid down. They didn't play good September baseball, and they just did not finish well. The Mets this year just didn't start well, didn't finish well, didn't do anything well this year. And it showed. It basically just showed the age of this team, and that's what happens when you don't win. A very top-heavy roster. I'm not putting the full-on blame with Buck Showalter, but I'm not saying that he is a full-on saint in this whole situation. I think that a lot of the development of the young players, a lot of the playing time, a lot of the decision-making, a lot of the bullpen management, a lot of that is on him. And I saw a lot of that last year when they even had success. And I feel like, especially with the bullpen management, there was one guy who they gave $102 million with at the end of the year who bailed him out a lot. And when he is not here, you're kind of just seeing the whole situation of Buck Showalter where he doesn't have an elite premier reliever in the back end of his bullpen to lead him out. And right now, obviously you can go back to Billy Epler as well, but Buck Showalter definitely wasn't the godsend that everyone will debate that he was. And even though he did have the experience, I just don't think it was winning experience. And especially what you got from Buck Showalter this year and from the year before, that's exactly what's been going on throughout his entire career. And that personally, when I've heard 3 to 5 years to win a World Series, that's not good enough. So not even making the playoffs this year, last year, losing in the wild card. It's just not good enough. The Mets went all in. They had a huge payroll. They wanted to win now, and they didn't. And heads are going to roll as for that. So anything else y'all want to add? Obviously, Craig Counsell is a possibility, obviously a possibility. We've talked about Joe Espada before. There's other, Jesus Christ, we're doing another manager search. But I believe this is last 3 seasons is the 5th manager they're going to be hiring in the last 3 years. So I'm really just hoping that there is some consistency here, and I want to bring in somebody young and somebody right for the job. And I think that they've nailed it so far with David Stearns. We're going to talk about him, obviously, I'm sure throughout the entirety with some of these players, but David Stearns was my first choice, and it breaks the trend of, players and guys that they bring in here where I'm like, okay, this is not my first choice, but whatever, I'll take it. It's not the worst. But David Stearns, one of the first choices that I would have made. So they've knocked it out so far. I'd be good with Craig Counsell. I'd be good with, Joe Espada. Gabe Kepler's available, but I'm not thriving for it. And I don't know who else is. we've talked about Miguel Cairo before. We talked about, there's other possibilities. I'm just hoping that there's nobody over the age of 60. And listen, it may sound ageist, but old people suck in this game now. Okay, that's literally just how it is. It's young. You need talent. You need guys who can relate to that and know what a younger player needs. And I would like a lot in that manager spot, even if they are being controlled by whatever advanced analytics department that they have. Anything else? No, nothing. Okay. So let's get into these player grades. Now we have these separated into 3 different groups. First, we're going to talk about the early departures, the ones that were left in that were traded in the trade deadline. So we're going to have to jog our memory back to when they had a tenure with the Mets. And then we'll also have the post-deadline players, of course, guys who are still on the team, who played out through the rest of the season, that were still on the 40-man roster. And then, of course, the rookies, which we have 7 of them, technically, that qualify. All these players for batters, we have a minimum 100 plate appearances, and all of the pitchers are a minimum 30 innings pitched. So if you're looking for a rundown on Reed Garrett or Tommy Hunter, you're out of luck. No Michael Perez breakdown. Who gives a living shit about them? No Tim LaCastro. No one cares about him. Okay, so let's start off with the early departures. I want to start off with Mark Canha. Now, Canha was traded to the Brewers for, this is the wrong headline at the bottom, actually. I knew that there was a typo somewhere. He was traded for Justin Jarvis. That is not the right. That was the trade package for Eduardo Escobar. But Mark Canha, I'd say that he was decent, but still not great this year. Frank, I'll start with you. What do you got for Mark Canha?
Yeah, for Canha, I gave him a C-. I mean, he wasn't all the way terrible, but again, I mean, going into the season, kind of talked about, put on muscle, trying to elevate the ball, trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. You look at that total as a Met, 6 home runs. That's not what they were looking for, not what they were hoping for. And Canha was a guy that he had the good year last year, not great, but like I said, when you get these veteran players, especially a guy like Canha, his trend was going down. I mean, his entire career. I mean, we saw that each year he was getting slightly worse and slightly worse and slightly worse. And that trend continued this year. So, I mean, they got a decent return for Canha. I didn't think they'd get much. He wasn't a big-time name out there. Even though there weren't too many bats moved at the deadline, all in all, for this year particular, C-. Again, return was okay. His performance, it wasn't, absolutely awful, but again, it wasn't great. It was very average. So that's why I give him a C-. And one of the other things about Canha, he's not going to give you much defense. He's not going to give you much on the bases. Gave you a little bit of versatility when you have your injuries. And, he played a decent first base. I will say that. I mean, I was pretty impressed there. A guy who was primarily outfit. He gave you a decent first base. An emergency played third base. So he did do some things for the team. But again, if you don't do them at a high level, it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. So that's why I gave him a C-.
Okay. Andrew, what do you got for him?
Oh.
Okay. Canha just hacked into the... Okay.
What the hell happened? All right.
He didn't like your grade. Go ahead.
He didn't like my grade.
All
Came
right,
hacked the system. Yeah. Give him a C. Again, he continued to regress from last year. We still hope on base percentage and get down a little bit. Obviously, defensively, not great. He played great third base. Third base, Canha, legendary on this channel. But again, kind of a C. It was kind of funny that he went over to Milwaukee and just got raging hot for the Brewers and helped them down the stretch and to make the playoffs, which was kind of funny. But again, just kind of average Canha and give me a C. And then again, the return was decent. And again, it's just kind of funny. As soon as he leaves, anyone leaves the Mets, shocker, they go back and being good. So I'll give him a C.
Yeah, I also gave him a C. I mean, overall, he just had like an average year with the Mets, and there really wasn't much to just be like, okay, Mark Canha's up. I mean, he came in clutch for us a lot last year, and then, he was one of the guys that we were expected to be on the way out. Obviously, short-term deal. And you know what? I like Mark Canha, obviously. I loved him in Oakland. He was a lot different of a player in Oakland. And obviously, it's just a regressing player who's solid, the bottom third of the lineup, but there's nothing too crazy. He's definitely replaceable. You definitely could upgrade from him. And I'm hoping that the Mets do that in the offseason. So I'm going to give Canha a C as well. And hopefully there's no more typos on these graphics. I want to go through these as quick as I can, the early departures, because who gives a shit at this point? Okay, I want to move to Eduardo Escobar. Speaking of, there you go, the same bottom. Eduardo Escobar. A lot of people are calling for his head because they wanted to see somebody else play, who we'll get into. Eduardo. Andrew, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I gave him a C minus. Like, he just didn't do anything. I mean, he's solid, average defensively was kind of the only thing he did was serviceable. But again, at that plate, didn't give you much. Again, shocker! The month of Escobar was an outlier. Oh my God, who could have saw that coming? But again, he's a bench on a good team, which he didn't go to the Angels, but on a good team, he's a backup infielder. And on our team, he was starting at third base first couple months, and that's again, you see with the 89 WRC plus. That's not good WRC plus. That's not even average. So below average hitter, an average defender. So I'll give him a C minus.
Okay.
Because good locker room vibes. I'm a great locker room guy.
Shut the fuck up. Okay. Frank, what do you got for Escobar?
I gave him a D. I think this was definitely a very disappointing season for Escobar. There was the pressure, there was people calling for Brett Beatty at the time, and rightfully so. You wanted to see the big young prospect. How that worked out, we'll get to later. But the one thing that Escobar did decent is that once Beatty was playing full time, he played okay coming off the bench. He wasn't totally bad. He'd give you more offensive production in a spot start than Luis Guillorme and some other, backup players that we've seen. So I'll give him that. He does move around the field a little bit, so he always had that going for him. But all in all, another guy, veteran, constantly regressing, not the player he was, getting worse every single year. That's what happens with age for most players. So for Escobar, also give it a D. And for his return, we'll see how it works out, because the guys had the injuries and things like that. But I'm glad that they got some pitchers for him. I think this is a team that, like we said, definitely needs more young arms in the system, and they were able to do that with Escobar coming off of a very bad season. So I think the fact that Escobar on a bad year was able to turn to a couple pitchers for your minor league system, I think all in all was a pretty good return for him.
Yeah, I also gave him a D, and I just never really thought he was a good player at all. And I really just did not think he was starting caliber whatsoever on any World Series team. Obviously, it just seemed like more of a placeholder for a certain someone, but we'll get to that. But I gave it a D. It's just, he regressed completely. And I personally don't agree that he gave as more value than Luis Guillorme, to be honest. I really think he was that useless, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me jogging my memory and it's not fresh in my mind because they traded him. What was it in August?
It was like late April,
July. Yeah, they got rid of him
early in the season.
But they did trade him early in the season, but he had the team option, which gave him a little bit more trade value than certain other guys that we dealt away. So Coleman Crow, Landon Marchessault, they can be decent arms, and maybe there are pieces that they deal away some other way, but still not worth that contract. I don't give a shit. But let's just keep moving along because I just want to get these guys who are not even here out of the way. Let's move to Dominic Leone. Fantastic arm, dare I say. We traded him to the Angels for Jeremiah Jackson, super utility guy. Signed him off the street, pretty much. So the fact that they got an actual breathing human being for him was actually pretty crazy. What do you got for Dominic Leone? I'll start with Andrew.
The dude just fucking sucked. So again, there was no he gave you this bright spot. Like, he didn't even have his Adonis Medina random out high leverage outing. No, the dude just sucked. The fact that we got, again, like you said, Jeremiah Jackson, who looks a solid prospect for a guy who was at the time was a top 10 Angels prospect. Yes, it sucked. The Angels system sucked. But to get anything from him, again, in Kansas City, I saw the reaction. I'm like, how the hell did we get something for Dominic Leone? So, again, an F-Dog masterclass for once. But, again, on the field, the dude was awful. And, again, to get something for him, big A+. But overall first performance, an F.
Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a D-. Like Andrew said, there wasn't a lot to like here. Didn't do anything particularly well. Best thing about him was that return. I mean, I also was very surprised that they got someone a utility player. I mean, you always love having those in your organization. That definitely helps you out long term. So to get that and the guy who could actually hit a little bit for Leone, who was again just pitching awful. I mean, and he got traded pretty early on too. I mean, he was another guy that went quite before the deadline. Didn't see it coming at all. Very glad that it happened. So that was really good in my book.
Yeah, I gave him a D- as well. I feel like he was used in a lot of high leverage spots for no goddamn reason. And then obviously, when a starter would not go 5 innings, which was very frequent, especially before the All-Star break, he would be the first one out there to clean up the mess and, or lack thereof. And it was just very boring to just see him out there. One of those pitchers that it's just, you knew the game was over when he was coming in. Not because you knew that he was probably going to blow it. It was just because it was most likely just a complete blowout and he was just in mop-up duty. To be honest, I was surprised that he only pitched 30 innings and 2/3. Because to be honest, I thought he pitched about 100 innings for us. I saw this dude out here every goddamn night. And I mean, I saw this guy a little too much, like a little bit more than I should have. Saw Tommy Hunter a little bit more as well. But obviously we're not talking about him. So Dominic Leone, I'm going to give him a D- as well. Andrew, you went very rough for him, but you know what? I don't really give a shit. Anyways,
sorry, I'm the aggressor of this video, so yeah, fuck 'em.
That was very mean. Okay, thank you, Dominic Leone. Okay, let's get to a bright spot piece that is gone. Let's go to David Robertson. Now, we signed this guy on a 1-year deal, $10 million. He was slotted into the closer's role after our original closer got hurt in the WBC in a freak accident on the field. He was great. Traded him to the Marlins, got 2 basically lottery tickets. Both of them are like 14 years old. But David Robertson, his time with the Mets, we'll start with Frank. What do you got for your guy?
For D-Rob, I gave him an A-. I thought David Robson, he got off to a tremendous start. I mean, the first month of the season was really strong. As the season started to progress a little bit, the Mets had to rely on him a lot, and I felt like you saw this stuff kind of diminish a little bit. All of a sudden, he was giving up more runs here and there. It felt like as the season was going on, he got worse and worse, and that really held true once he got dealt over to Miami and was nowhere near the same guy. Ended up pitching very rough for them. And I thought that, being a guy who could be a closer, which is what he did for the Mets once Edwin Diaz went down, I still thought the Mets were hopefully going to get a little more for him return-wise based off the kind of season he was having. They did not, but all in all, he pitched really well for the Mets. It's a shame that we didn't get to see him and Diaz at the same time. I think that really would have made a big difference for this team. Not enough for them to actually have been in the postseason, but it would have been nice to see, that really solid combination of 8-9 with Robertson and Diaz. And I feel that if Diaz was there, Robertson would have been even better because he's not pitching in as high leverage. He's not pitching as frequently. And a guy at his age, you can't be throwing him out there as often as he was. He would have been more effective. So it's a shame we didn't get to see it, but all in all, he did well for the Mets. Not so good for the Marlins, but that's perfectly fine. But we got what we needed out
of him. Andrew.
That's my co-host dies. I gave him an A. Again, replacing Diaz, again, going into that 9th inning role. Just, hey, you were supposed to be the setter man. We paid you to be the 8th inning guy, and then just to quietly shift to that closer role and do a hell of a job. Again, to replace, the best reliever in baseball is not a bad idea. Again, return, who really cares? But just for, again, the ability just to shift on a dime to say, hey, now you're the ninth inning guy. Again, the rest of the bullpen around him, wasn't great and had to be, down, like Frank said, as the season went along, got a lot more usage than a 37-year-old or 38-year-old reliever. I'm talking about football. Receiver.
Nice.
Hell, they're
38-year-old receiver. That's crazy.
Oh God. But I gave him an A again, just for what he was brought into and put in the situation that he did. The return, but he did pretty well. Went in a Met uniform again, like you said. We're not talking about his Miami tenure. So, as in a Met uniform, he was productive. Give him an
A. They'll be up momentarily. I'm just kind of going by sections here. Okay. David Robertson, I also gave him an A. He would get an A+ if he was Edwin Diaz, but he's not. So it gets an A. Obviously, stepping into a role that was expected to be Edwin Diaz and Edwin Diaz only, giving him $102 million, and obviously the injury that just completely sucked and possibly sucked the life out of this entire team, maybe. And, the Mets definitely needed Edwin Diaz, but they got a decent backup to that role, being David Robertson. Now, Robertson didn't get many save situations because the Mets weren't really in many situations to win, but overall, he was good. He was really good. Overall, solid. Was he explosive like Edwin Diaz? No. Is anyone as good as Edwin Diaz? No. But David Robertson was really good for us, and I do want to obviously bring up this topic because it has come up. David Robertson, he's going to be a free agent next year. Would you bring him back? Yes or no? I had to bring it up. I have to. I'm sorry.
No.
I got to do diligence.
I'd
no.
say
no. We'll get to the reason why in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
I'd say no.
Exactly.
Not at his age. That's my main concern. I think, again, you've obviously seen the best of David Robertson, and that second half he had from Miami was really just that makes you worried, because the next year I feel like he's going to be even worse. So again, he did what he had to do, and we've talked about that so many times with the Mets, particularly with relievers. If they were good for you, thank you for your service. See you later. Let's get someone new, because it just doesn't work out. I mean, it's very, very rare we see that actually pan out. So. And we'll, like I said, we'll get to that very soon. But for me, he did what he did. He's gone. Thank you, and no more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at his age, if he was 34, I'd probably reconsider it. If he was 35, like if he was at that, but now, I mean, this guy is pushing 40 at this point. If you get a 1-year deal and you get an elite season from a reliever, especially at that age, personally, you take it and leave it, and that's it. You move on. I want them to obviously aim younger. I don't think that David Robertson is going to be on the David Stearns radar, but obviously he will be available, and he's going to be shutting us down when he's on the Braves next year. So let's get to, I guess, a controversial one because it's kind of been put into the spotlight recently after his comments. Let's get to Tommy Pham. This was somebody who I think the Mets... I don't know if it was a pivot, but I mean, it was an addition that definitely was, it was a lot better than we expected it to be. We were, I think that mutually we were kind of like, we were down on it. Some of us more than others. But Andrew, what did you give Tommy Pham?
Again, a guy that most of us didn't want because, again, he was coming off a fight about fantasy football. So, yeah, we weren't very high on the signing, but production on the field over I'm trying to look for the word. Gave him an A because, again, expectations were fucking low, and he was our best hitter for most parts of that first half of the season. Behind Lindor and Alonso, he was the best bat. And again, for a guy that we brought in, we all hated, he's just a fourth outfielder. It ended up being our second best outfielder overall. And the return, again, another lottery ticket kind of shortstop who's like 12 years old. But again, production, I'll give him an A. and the fact that he called the whole freaking locker room soft, it's kind of funny. So give him an
A. Okay.
Yeah, as much as it pains me, he also does get an A from me. I mean, definitely exceeded expectations. Ended up playing really well. I mean, he got off to a very slow start, but then once he got it going, I mean, he just kept on rolling. And what disappoints me is that he was the best bat on the trade market. I still am disappointed with the return of the Mets guy. I feel like, based off what they got for some of their other pieces, I felt like they should have got more for Tommy Pham. I thought, maybe more contenders be in the bidding. Does his personality have anything to do with it? Maybe, because again, as you saw, every single place this guy goes, he starts problems off the field. He's just not a guy that we talk about, how important the clubhouse chemistry is and things like that. You don't want Tommy Pham in your clubhouse. He just always seems to start problems one way or another. But on the field, he played well. I'll give him that. It was a surprise considering his age. But again, what I didn't like about Pham was how one-dimensional he was as far as the outfield. We saw him in spring training. He was playing center field. That was a nightmare. I mean, he was strictly limited to left field and DH. So I think the Mets definitely needed a different fit. And that's obvious as he's gone. And I don't think he's coming back after what he said about the team. So once again, it was the epitome of a rental. And like we talked about, you want to get those players that are here for a long time. And that's the other thing that bothered me about Pham. He wasn't a guy that you knew was going to be on the team every single year. It just felt like kind of a extra signing to me. I mean, he didn't move the needle all that much. So that's, I think the most disappointing thing was that, the Mets had Correa had the bad year, the injury, all that stuff. But the fact that the next thing they did was get Tommy Pham, it just felt like a big decline, a big drop off from where the expectations were versus reality. I think that was the other thing that really impacted the way a lot of people felt about the Pham signing. That was the only external addition the Mets made to an offense that obviously had some glaring weaknesses. And then he ended up being one of their best hitters, but then they had to get rid of him because of everybody else performing so poorly.
Well, for me, the overall performance from Tommy Pham, especially from what you signed him for, it's an A, but I'm going to bump it up to an A+ because he called this locker room a bunch of fucking losers, because they are. I don't blame him for saying that at all. He earned every right to say that. And listen, he played his ass off for us. And to be honest, I'm not shocked about the return, to be honest, because I mean, it's a rental. And also he's 35 years old. So it's like, I was not really shocked at that. I would have liked to get like a upper level pitcher or an upper level, like that would have been nice, of like, somebody who's like 30 or 28 on the thing. I did not expect the Diamondbacks to pick him up anyway. But overall, Tommy Pham, the only gripe I had with him was that he didn't pull fly balls, and that was what sucked because he had such great quality of contact. And then he started to pull fly balls, and look at that. Look at those numbers across the bottom. And that was the ideal, so he was like our second best hitter for a majority of the season. He was our best hitter in the lineup. I mean, the guy just freaking mashed, and obviously he has that personality, which I think is perfect for New York, but it doesn't look like he's going to be invited back after what he said. But I'm fine with it, to be honest. I'm glad that he kind of shit talked this team, because he deserved to say it. It's not like some other guys, and we'll get to it, who didn't take any accountability when they were the problem. So I'm going to give Pham an A+. I think just for the value, for what you signed him for, I think he was fantastic. I wasn't expecting much. He's the type of guy that you get very, very frustrated with when he's not hitting, but when he is hitting, you freaking love the guy. And I'm pretty sure he called himself Tiger Hood, right, when he was putting. So he's a cool dude. I like Tommy Pham. I think he's cool. I think he's a cool guy. But other than that, let's continue with the guys who are out of here, because I just don't want to spend so much goddamn time on it. But I think these are going to be a little bit more lengthy than the other ones. Let's start with Justin Verlander. Now, Verlander, he was signed this offseason. He was a Met for about 2 months, 3 months. Started off injured on opening day. They announced on opening day that he's hurt with a right teres major strain. It's not a real thing. Hurt his armpit. I don't even know. But then he did come back. He was good, just wasn't the Justin Verlander that we've seen throughout his career. And then we traded him back to the Astros for Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford. So Verlander's forgotten Mets career in a few years, obviously. Frank, I'll go to you. What did you think about Verlander?
Yeah, Verlander, I gave him a C. And it wasn't more so the performance, it was the expectations. You know, I think all in all, we look at those numbers, they're okay numbers, they're solid numbers. But when you're talking about highest paid pitcher in the league, that's unacceptable. And like we talked about, the injuries, the inconsistencies, all those things just didn't fly. You know, I mean, the replacement for DeGrom, obviously DeGrom had his injury as well. You know, surprise, surprise, the guy's always hurt. But I just think that the only thing that I like about Verlander, so Dominic Leone, I love the return that the Mets got for Justin Verlander. I think this is an organization that for way too long has had no minor league quality outfield depth. And I'm excited for these outfielders to get here whenever they are ready, because where else are they? I mean, I've said that for years and years. Where are your other outfielders that are going to come up and help this team? Because how long do you need to have these rotating veterans in the corners because you don't have any guys in your system? You just got to keep signing some old guys to fill in for the corners for you as placeholders. So I really love the what they got back considering his age and his injury history and all that. So all in all, it ended up working out for the return that they got to get those prospects and to get rid of some of that money. The Mets still have to pay some of it, just to get some of that money off the books was good because of just how much they invested into this guy per year, that AAV, you know, multi-year deal. It wasn't like it was a 1 year where you could just kind of cut your losses. The fact that it was a multi-year deal was the other thing. Again, the fact they would get rid of him for this return, I think was really good. All in all, it was disappointing. I mean, what I really didn't like was the inconsistencies. I mean, you see a couple of very nice Verlander starts, but then you see some where you're just like, I mean, what is this? This is not a guy that should be one of the highest paid pitchers in the league. So for me, that's why I gave him a C, mostly because of expectation, not so much performance.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, just because of the return, and maybe that just boosts it. I'll give him a C+ just for the return. Again, the highest AAV to a pitcher wasn't, you're not with the 3.15 ERA. That's mediocre ERA. That's almost as bad as, you know, some other horrible pitchers. But again, the return's great. 92, 94 innings. I mean, it's more than Jacob deGrom, so, you know, but more valuable than Jacob deGrom. But besides the point. On serious note, again, disappointing again with that AAV. But again, the return is what we're excited for. Again, Drew Gilbert looks to be a dog. Ryan Clifford, we'll see. Power potential, just kind of struggled throughout the minor leagues where Drew came over here and just raked. But again, in getting out of that bad contract, again, not a bad contract, but they could find a way to get out of the deal. I'll give him a C+.
Okay. For me, Verlander gets a C, just like Frank. It just was so up and down that, like, you had your good start, your bad start, your 3 good starts, then it just was not Justin Verlander, and this was kind of just what I expected when they signed this guy. It's just, when you sign somebody who's going to be 40 years old, it's a big risk. Even though he does have that pedigree, he does have that history of having a fantastic career. I mean, this guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer. We'll talk about the next guy as well. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But we've seen the Mets do this before, and the fact that they went to this direction to replace such a ridiculous talent in Jacob deGrom, I feel like they had to admit that Jacob deGrom, what you were getting from him was not going to be replaced. And I just did not see the real reason of giving another older pitcher $43 million and basically just duplicating that after how it ended last year with the other pitcher, which we'll get into in a second. But I do love this return. I feel like for the first time ever, the Mets fell into a trade where they weren't the desperate team. The Astros freaking gave up their 1 and their 4 for Justin Verlander, who is a negative asset given his contract. The fact that the Mets, they're going to be paying it off, but, Drew Gilbert, I really do like. Ryan Clifford, I do like. Both of them pull fly balls. Both of them have a lot of raw power. So I like both of these guys. But, him as his performance, it definitely was disappointing. And, at this point, we're getting into these two guys making $43 million where we're not going to give them any excuses. They have to go out there and pitch and perform. And if they don't perform, they're out of here. And that's literally what just happened. Verlander was decent overall, but it just was not Justin Verlander. But I kind of just expected this because on the downside, going into 40 years old, it's a risk. They took that risk, but they were able to pivot and get this decent return. So let's get to the most controversial guy who left and was traded to Texas. Let's talk about Max Scherzer, who is going to the playoffs along with Verlander. There is so much that you can talk about with the whole situation with Scherzer. But I don't want to give it too much because I feel like we've talked about it a little too much. I feel like I've made a good amount of podcast clips just about Max Scherzer, just alone. But overall, Scherzer's year as a Met, you can even, dust in his whole tenure because it wasn't long. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm not going to waste my breath. I gave him a D. Again, second highest paid pitcher in the game, 4 ERA. Again, you look at the expected ERA, it's better. But again, in big games, this guy flops harder than a fish. And anytime that you thought, hey, this is the beginning of it, you just have another 7-run game. You're like, what the hell is that? So, and again, he didn't shut his mouth once he left, which, obviously the New York media ran with. But just performance in the contract, it's a D.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I also gave a D for Max Scherzer. Again, performance and expectations, you didn't live up to either one. So that's why I also gave him that rating. As far as his return, I'm not the biggest fan of Luis Angel Acuna. I mean, there is some potential there. There is some upside there, but you always do have your concerns with a player of that stature as far as what their ceiling truly is. We know what this Mets team needs. I am curious to see where he ends up. Does he end up in the infield? Does he end up in the outfield like his brother Ronald? And that's one of the things that I'm intrigued. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I mean, maybe he's a guy that could move around the field a little bit. So the fact that, again, the Mets get one player for Scherzer, but they get two for Justin Verlander, I do find that pretty interesting as well. Both those teams competing in that same division, everything like that all year long. So for me, obviously the whole tenure was disappointment. We had a year and a half of Max Scherzer compared to just the half year of Justin Verlander. Both of them were very disappointing, very inconsistent, and just didn't live up to, again, that massive contract that they gave him. Again, they are still paying some of it, but at least not all of it, because Scherzer is another guy like Verlander who could have been back the next year as well and would be even worse given their age. So again, I think the fact that they don't have to even worry about these guys next year as far as being in the rotation, how much they're getting paid, and how little they're delivering, at least they don't have to worry about that going into next season.
Yeah, as I update the board here, because I'm going in sections, so I also gave Max Scherzer a D. I'm tired of talking about this guy. I think that he's just been so much of a headache as for someone that we expected to just be all business and go out to the mound and be this fierce competitor. I feel completely tricked by the whole selling point of Max Scherzer. I'm not seeing it. I didn't see the fierce competitor. All I just saw was a bunch of whining. And that was literally just all I saw. And, the fact that, the way that we saw this kind of fall out at the trade deadline, where he's talking about how he needs to hear this from Steve after Billy Epler told him that they're not going to compete. He has to hear it from Steve. He hears the same thing from Steve Cohen. And, it just, the entitlement from somebody who was given $43 million to perform. He didn't perform. You're one of the reasons why this team is so shit. And the fact that I mean, to be honest, I don't care who the hell you are. You can be the greatest pitcher of all time. Like, he had no right, in my opinion, to act like that. And I think that was something that was just really, it just gave me a sour taste in my mouth of somebody who is so well respected around the game. And so, seen as this Hall of Fame, guy with, just a fierce competitor. And I just didn't see it. And that was something that was just really disappointing with Scherzer. All I saw was a lot of whining, a lot of choking. I mean, just the guy just stunk. And overall, I understand we can talk about, Max Scherzer, and there's some Nationals fans that I've seen talk about how, we'd never deserved him after, before that playoff start when he screwed up. But like, here's the deal. They got a great contract for him in DC. Okay. We gave him $43 million a year to perform when we needed him to perform. He didn't perform. So he was going to get that ridicule. End of story. Like, the Mets were here to win a World Series, and they didn't win a World Series mainly because of this guy right here giving up 7 runs in the playoffs. So I don't want to hear it. The Mets did not do him dirty, okay? You're sitting pretty with $43 million a year from the Mets, and, now you're going to the playoffs right now. So I don't want to hear anything of what he's going to say about our front office. Say what you want about Billy Epler. I don't think he's the best. But, just basically publicly saying this to the first goddamn reporter, just shitty of him. Very shitty of him. And I think that, overall, all I saw from Max Scherzer was just an arrogant, entitled asshole. And that was just very disappointing from somebody that I expected to be a lot more of a professional. So let's get to those who are here, still here. Okay, let's start off with the leadoff spot from the top of the lineup, and that being Brandon Nimmo. Now, Nimmo, we brought back as a free agent on an 8-year deal, $162 million, as the great Boris client that he is. And another great Brandon Nimmo season, and then some. What do you got for your guy, Andrew?
It's one of the few A+. Again, Gold Glove defender. Well, let me phrase it. Good defender in center field. And now he's in for power. Hell, almost hit 25 homers this year. So that was the one thing we're like, we know he's an on-base chat. He's going to get on base. He's going to get his singles. He's in the top of the lineup, whatever. This man starts hitting for power. This man can be a complete 5-tool player. And guess what? 24 homers. Sadly, gets there. Couldn't hit that 25 milestone. But 24 homers out of your leadoff spot. Yes, in most teams, not that great. But for Brandon Nimmo, a prototypical leadoff hitter, old school-wise, hitting 24 homers, it's an A+.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely love what we saw from Brandon Nimmo this year. Also getting an A+ for me, and the evolution. I mean, we always say, "Oh, he's your traditional leadoff hitter. He's a guy that gets on base and things like that." Well, now your leadoff hitters, a lot of times, are power hitters. I mean, you see a lot of times games start 1-0, and Brandon Nimmo went from an old school power hitter. An old school leadoff hitter to a new school leadoff hitter. So he's able to, and like we say, adapt. We say pull the fly ball. Change with the way the game has been changing. And Brandon Nimmo did that. And Andrew, you talked about him finishing the year with 24 home runs. The thing that I like is that he did so much of that in the second half. I think he found something. There was a slight mechanical adjustment as far as the way he strides to the pitcher and the way he sets up in his stance, had him a little more straight, a little more balanced, able to generate that power. And you saw when he hit for 24 home runs, and it happened in bunches. It happened like all at once. You saw multi-home run games and things like that from Brandon Nimmo, and still giving you just good overall offensive numbers. On-base percentage was a little lower than his best years, but I'm willing to trade that to get that big boost in power. You know, he saw his OPS, he had his WRC plus. I mean, he had his WAR. I mean, he had all those other nice little stats that you want for him to have. And as we know, still a good defender in center field. Still waiting for him to steal the bases. I was hoping that with the rule changes and you see some guys stealing 70 bases, that we might see a little bit more from Nimmo. Hasn't happened yet, but I think with these new rules, he should be taking advantage of that because he does have good speed, but it's just a matter of getting those better jumps. And I think it's worth trying it. Just give your team a new element. It'll make things easier for your hitters. It will give the pitcher something to worry about. But other than that, definitely an A+. I'm just glad to see that, the Mets gave him this big deal, 8 years, we worried about that. But the fact that he improved from the contract, I think is always a really good sign. You don't want to give a guy a big money for what he did, and then he starts going downhill. So I think the fact that Nimmo is still entering his prime, and we saw him make a whole year healthy, that's another big thing for Brandon Nimmo because we know about his injuries. Still no all-star, which is really disappointing because look at those numbers. That's an all-star player, but it's okay. I mean, the main thing is that he played well, and that's what you like to see. And the thing about Nimmo that is always in your favor, never going to give you any issues off the field, on the field, things like that. He's always just going to be a guy, no matter how bad you're doing, he's still going to try his best. You always love that as a fan, homegrown guy. So, what else can you say? Nothing but good things for Brandon Nimmo this season.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think if you look at him from last year compared to this year, I mean, it's almost identical, but then he's just adding more power. And I think that it's just been so amazing to just see Brandon Nimmo every goddamn year just get better and better and better. And every single year, I feel like I say this was his best year. Like, this was the best year of his career. Adding more power from the leadoff spot, making other guys who we'll get into very, very obsolete. But overall, I think this was just a fantastic year from Brandon Nimmo. And it looks like we avoided an injury scare towards the end there. What was it? It was like a rotator cuff sprain or something, but it doesn't look like anything serious. I know that last year that we talked about, him kind of, not last year, during spring training, we talked about him kind of sitting out spring training games, and that was kind of like a little bit of a concern. But listen, if he's going to give me, 150 games of this production in the regular season, do whatever the hell you want in spring. Go ahead, play golf. I don't care. You can go out drinking with your buddies. If you're going to give me this type of production for the next 7 years, go ahead. Obviously, who knows? But, he's entered the prime of his career. He's getting close to, he's coming towards the age 30. The defense, I'd say, took a little bit of a dip, but nothing as too concerning. And to be honest, if you're going to give me 24 home runs from the leadoff spot, I'm not going to complain. This is your ideal leadoff hitter right here. I think that Jeremy Barnes did a fantastic job with him, and that's the one reason why I don't think he should be on the way out. I don't think Jeremy Barnes is a bad hitting coach. I don't think he's great, but Nimmo is definitely one of the good products as to compare to what he has done. But just every single year with Brandon Nimmo, I feel like I say it every year. This was his career year. This was his best year. This was his best year. And I can say it once again. Just a complete power surge and continuing the production of last year, matching that and just producing even more power. That is just something else, especially after getting an 8-year deal in free agency. Okay, well, I think that we can just continue down the lineup, traditional lineup. Let's go to the 2-hole, I guess. We'll go to the big one, Francisco Lindor. Why not? Let's talk about Lindor. 30-30 season, the fourth in Mets history behind Wright, Strawberry, and Johnson. Lots of power from Lindor as well. How did this team not make the playoffs with all this power? Andrew, what do you got for Lindor?
Yeah, another A+. And again, top of the lineup's great. I wonder what happens to the rest of the lineup. Like you said, how does this team miss the playoffs? All this power. But yeah, again, 30-30, continuing just to be solid defender. Like the occasional brain fart, but he's still one of the best defensive shortstops in the game. Add the 30-30, which again, Frank talked about with Nimmo not running. Lindor sure as hell was running all over with these new rules, and good to see. And again, just is he ever going to be worth the contract? And that's going to be the consistent debate with fans all over. Who knows? But again, this year, you've seen some idiots saying, oh, this is a hollow 30-30 season. Shut the fuck up. A 30-30 season is usually, this team, fourth player to do it. It's rare in this franchise. So it's an A+. There's not much more you can say. Again, will he ever be worth the contract? Shut the hell up. Nobody knows. But for this season alone, pretty good year. So I give him an A+.
I'll determine that with hardware on my finger. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like that's literally it. Or he wins a MVP or something like that. But 30-30 is pretty impressive. Frank, what do you think? Your fellow Puerto Rican, what do you got?
I mean, it definitely was a very good season for Lindor. Because of his contract, he gets the A and not the A+. The 30-30 season was very good. Obviously, we know the defense is good. But as far as the offense, I mean, besides the power, I still need just a little more. I mean, he still has his streaky moments. I think a guy of his pay grade, the OPS has got to be higher. I think the batting average has got to be a little higher. But all in all, it definitely was a very good season. But I think because of ways getting paid and because of what Lindor has done in the past, I think he is capable of just a little more. So all in all, it definitely was a very good season for him. But I think when we look at some other players, guys making similar amount of money like Mookie Betts, he doesn't really stack up to a guy like that. So that's why for me, he's getting the A.
See, we're completely different people because I want the batting average to be lower and for him to hit for even more power.
But the thing is, I've seen Lindor have similar power numbers in Cleveland with a much better batting average. So I know he could do both. It shouldn't be one or the other. I think a guy his caliber, he could do both.
I don't really give a shit, to be honest. If a home run equals 4 hits. So
sure, but you can still have the same amount of home
runs
runs while also doing something productive more frequently.
I mean, all these extra base hits, and then when he was getting singles, he was stealing bases. So he was taking away the double play no matter what. So that's all I can ask for. I gave him an A, and the only reason why I didn't give him an A+ is just basically just what Frank said at the beginning. There was because of just the streakiness. There were some stretches where it was concerning, and it's just kind of just how Francisco Lindor is. I've kind of just accepted that. I think that he's a $341 million caliber player. I just don't think he's a $341 million caliber hitter. And we've talked about that before. And, overall, I think that, the best team batting average in baseball is the Braves. Yes, but they also have great power numbers as well because they do everything prolifically. Batting average does not matter. I would like to flush that thing down the toilet. It's literally just for ego. It's not for anything. Power wins championships, folks. Okay. But overall, I mean, it was a great season from Lindor. It was great to see him chase 30-30. It was just great to see him. I mean, overall, the power was just very balanced from both sides. I mean, pulling a lot of line drives, pulling a lot of fly balls from the right side and the left side. I'm pretty sure he ended with 16 home runs from the right side and 15 from the left side. So it was very, very balanced, which I really do like. So overall, Lindor had a fantastic season, in my opinion. I loved this approach. It's definitely come with a little bit of inconsistency. He's hit in bunches, but if the lineup was a little bit better, maybe it would be hidden a little bit, and it wouldn't be such a top heavy and be put on blast. But speaking of top heavy and basically carrying every piece of weight, let's get to the other big bopper in this lineup, which is Pete Alonso. A lot is going to be talking about. We're going to talk about a lot during the offseason. Jesus Christ, that picture is huge. But overall,
he's a big guy. Big picture.
Yeah, he is a very, very big guy. But overall, Pete Alonso, we all know about his pending free agency after next season. We know that the extension talks have been something that we've gotten seldom news about. It's progressed a little bit. Something that we don't know if it will get done or not with, David Stearns coming in here. We know we had trade talks. We know that he's a clubhouse cancer. So 46 home runs, Pete Alonso doing Pete Alonso things. Frank, what do you got for him?
I also have A for Pete Alonso. I think that, again, I feel like he's capable of more. I think that WRC plus could certainly be higher with the kind of hitter that he is. And obviously the batting average could be higher. But in the one thing that will counter that with Pete Alonso, a few things. Number one, the way how he has no protection behind him, doesn't get pitches in the strike zone, still ends up with 46 home runs. Guy was playing hurt for way too long in the season and still put up 46 home runs. So what I want to see is give Pete Alonso a pretty good hitter behind him, keep him healthy. Don't hit him with pitches in the hand. And I bet you this guy hits another 50 home runs. I mean, that's what I love to see about Pete Alonso is that, he's a guy that, you can talk about your 30 home run hitters, even your 40 home run hitters, but a guy who year in, year out has a realistic chance of 50 home runs doesn't come by very often. And that's why I've said all along that Pete Alonso is a guy that really should be a high priority for the Mets as far as retaining. These guys don't grow on trees. You don't just get another Pete Alonso. So obviously he's done it in New York, extremely durable. I didn't give Lindor credit for that. These guys are out there 162. And that's another thing that in today's game, you can't take that for granted. So Alonso, another tremendous year. And it was crazy that even with an amazing year, I feel like he has the talent to be even better. And that's the scary part. But, I mean, that's just the kind of reputation that he has right now based off his performances.
What do you got?
All right, let's talk about it. It's a B because Frank made it clear. I know we can do better. This is a solid year. Last year was better. And last year was an A, so this year's a B. And he's an off-the-field distraction. And he's a locker room cancer, so there's deduction points. So it's a B. It's a very nice season. He's a DH. It's a very nice season. But like Frank said, we've seen better. So last year was an A when he led the league in homers and RBIs. He didn't do that this year. So the grade goes down. It's a B.
Because of Charlie Morton. That's why.
Well, I'm not going to say that because we're live, so I'm not going to say what I'm going to say. I'm just go.
Okay. I'm also going to give him an A, and I'm going to drop him from the A+ because I think it was, again, we all know how I hate when guys play through when they're hurt, and I think it was just something that was very irresponsible of the Mets and him as well. But obviously it looked like it healed at that point. And again, they need to pay him. They need to pay him. They don't have a choice. You're not getting a replacement, whether you want to talk about it or not. You are not replacing 40 to 50 home run power prolifically, perennial home run power. And maybe you would see this guy leading the league in home runs if he actually had somewhat protection throughout his entire career. You have given him Daniel. Yeah, or in Yankee Stadium too. Maybe if you didn't give him Daniel Vogelbach, J.D. Davis, Dominic Smith, Wilson Ramos, Darren Ruff, maybe we would see 60 home runs from this guy every goddamn year. Because he's on the field every year. Frank said it. He's on the field 162 games. You can't keep him off the field. That's the scary part.
Like, he's not going to get hurt. He needs to get hurt by somebody else. That's the only way Pete Alonso ever misses time. He doesn't pull a hamstring. He doesn't have an oblique. All this other crap that you see. He is getting hit by pitches all the time. Upper body, head, hand, things like that. They're always going for that with Pete Alonso. So if it was for other teams knocking him out of games, he ain't coming out of games. So that's the thing that I love about him.
Yeah, he wants to go out there. And listen, overall, when we talk about Pete Alonso, is he stupid? Yes, he's very dumb. He is not a smart guy. But he can play in a 2-2 for all I care if he hits 50 home runs every goddamn year. Like that, I really don't care about. Now, I know that we saw some rumors about him wanting 10 years and then the Mets giving him 8 years and meeting them in the middle. Don't look at... Okay, turn your damn mic on, all right? Go.
No, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the offseason. This is for this year. That's an offseason.
This is the offseason. The season just ended.
No. There's still Sunday Night Baseball. There's still Sunday Night Baseball, I think.
This is a Mets season is over. Nobody cares.
That's the next podcast. We'll talk about that. We're already an hour in. We got 40 players to go. We'll talk about it.
Hey, Chad, do you see how much of a wuss this guy is? He doesn't want to face the facts. He knows that I would out-debate him every goddamn time.
We're fighting a dog.
Overall, the only way I see getting rid of Pete Alonso is if you have a Matt Olson or a Freddie Freeman available, and you don't. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, Andrew, I'm going to open up the argument no matter what. I told you you're not replacing the production from Jacob deGrom. wasn't going to happen, the dominance of Jacob deGrom. You're not replacing the Edwin Diaz dominance. And the Mets bullpen looked fantastic this year. Do you really want to challenge me on Pete Alonso?
Well,
you really want to go?
Did we have a top 5 Cy Young pitcher this year to replace Jacob deGrom's production? Yeah. Was David Robertson one of the best relievers in the first half of the Mets? Yeah.
Wait. But didn't we have a fantastic? Didn't we have a fantastic bullpen this year? Didn't we have a fantastic rotation this year?
Time out. It's about replacing one person, and David Robertson replaced that one person. We'll get the other guy.
I'm sorry. Did Kodai Senga turn Taijuan Walker into an all-star in the fucking rotation?
No, he took that Jacob deGrom spot.
The whole point of it is when you take Jacob deGrom out of that rotation, it's nothing. Senga was on an island by himself. I mean, there wasn't that much pressure, right? I mean, come on.
No.
But we'll talk about that later. So, Pete Alonso, fantastic season in my opinion. Again, I gave him an A. The batting average I want lower. I want a Kyle Schwarber-like season because of 50 home runs equals 200 hits. That's how we look at it. And maybe he wouldn't have to swing so much at such little pitches in the zone if you gave him actual fucking protection. Remember that one little sliver of stretch? That one little sliver of stretch, and we'll get into it, when a certain guy was hitting a lot of home runs behind him and how much better he was hitting at a consistent rate. And we'll get into that guy right now who just came out of nowhere in DJ Stewart. Now, this guy just came out of nowhere, signed a minor league contract. I want to talk about him here because, listen, we know that there's some concerns in the outfield, and we know that he is under team control for a long time, so they will get to keep him if they want to. I don't know what his future is, but he just came in here out of nowhere, and he might be the love of my life. I don't know. Andrew, what do you got for DJ Stewart?
It's a B. Again, like we said, the expectation's extremely low, and he showed up once it's garbage time. It happened when the game didn't matter. I don't care. He had a John Buck month. Holy Jesus, he had a great month when games didn't matter. It's a nice month. It's a month stretch. I don't care. In the last 2 weeks, he didn't do dick. So who cares? It's a B. Have him come in as the fourth outfielder. I'm okay with him being back on the bench, but I'm not going to go nuts for a month stretch. We've seen this how many times with Met players when the games don't mean anything. Oh, this guy looks great. But then he comes back the next year and he sucks. It's a nice little month. It's a B. There's nothing wrong with a B. It's a passing grade. It's better than most hitters in this lineup. Just a B. I'm not going to go nuts and over. Holy shit, he had 57 ABs where he was the best player in baseball. No, it's a nice B. It's a bunch of homers. Cool. B.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a B plus. I'm also hoping that he starts the year as a fourth outfielder again, because this was such a one-off. It was so unexpected, and it was good, but it's not like the guy hit 30 homers. Again, he didn't have the play appearance to do it, but still, it's not. I'm not ready to get too excited about it. I mean, let me see you do it another year. Like I said, I think the sample size is just a little too small to overreact and be like, okay, this guy's for sure a guy to really make sure he's in your lineup every single day. But overall, I'm very happy with it. Definitely give him a B plus because, like we've said, Mets have not had fourth outfielders that have actually given you quality offensive production. DJ Stewart did that. He doesn't do much else. Not a great glove. Doesn't have a lot of speed. Strikes out quite a lot, things like that. But I think all in all, it was a pleasant surprise. But I just don't want to get too excited and then be disappointed when all of a sudden he goes back to earth and back to the guy he was before this season. So I'll give him a B plus, and I really hope that he continues it. I mean, that would be huge for the Mets to have another guy who probably could take the DH spot from Daniel Vogelbach. I sure hope this way you don't have to worry about him anymore, but at least another guy that could give you some production that is not over 35 years old. So I'll give him a B plus.
All right. Well, I'm just basing this off of his performance here. And for the value that you got, you signed this guy on a minor league contract. You have him with control through 2026, and he gave you an A+ performance. End of story. Pulling fly balls, swinging at strikes, striking out more to sacrifice contact for power. This is an A+ performance. You didn't expect anything from this guy. Not to mention he was a draft pick during the Buck Showalter era with the Orioles. So, I mean, we all know the type of players that Buck likes. So this was just an out of the ordinary thing. The Mets have signed a lot of guys to minor league contracts, and there was a lot of guys who were on minor league deals that did not belong here whatsoever. DJ Stewart comes in here and he acts like he belongs here. And that's how he looked. He just took the job and ran with it with the right fielder that's getting paid a lot of money going down. So I think that he performed at an A+ rate. Again, I'm not completely overreacting to it, but it was fun. It was really fun to watch this guy just come out of nowhere and hit bombs. It just basically looked like what Daniel Vogelbach was supposed to do, and it didn't cost you a Colin Holderman. Like, that's literally how it looked for me, and that's why I give it an A+ for the value that you got from this guy and what you expected. I mean, the guy was fantastic. And even though the games didn't count, which is a stupid argument, because everybody's fighting for a job the next year, they're still facing against major league pitching. I don't really give a shit about the clutch scenario. He showed why he was a first-round pick all these years ago. And the fact that we do have some control over him, and he's definitely outplayed a lot of other guys we've had on minor league deals. Definitely a fantastic pickup. And, that's why Billy Epler's on his way to the Hall of Fame. He just gets these guys. All right. Speaking of fat tubs of lard, let's go oversize the one-dimensional player who's the size of 18 dimensions. Let's talk about Daniel Vogelbach. Now, he had this mental break in June, comes back, and he actually was somewhat productive, but he's still Daniel Vogelbach. Overall, this season, we've talked about this guy a little too much, so I want to keep it as short and sweet as possible. Andrew, I'll start with you.
Move on.
Really? Seriously?
You want
Nothing?
F? Nothing. He's fat. He's useless.
Okay.
F. You want short? There you go.
13 homers? Really? Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was an F all year long until he had his mental break, and he did okay. So he bumped it up to a D-. Wow. The thing that bothers me the most is when the mental break happened. It happened in a very big stretch in June where it was make or break time, where the Mets, you're in that really important part of the season for the Mets, which is always June, where they always struggle. For the guy to just not be on the field because he mentally couldn't be on there, it's just so embarrassing. And like I said, it's just not going to work out in New York. As I said, like we said, every podcast, so one-dimensional, gives you a couple walks. That's about it. Can't do anything when he's on the base because he can't move. Doesn't own a glove to play the field. It's just a waste of fat. I mean, if you're going to be heavy, at least have power. You might as well just be skinny because you play like a guy that has no power. So overall, just extremely disappointing. The fact that the guy is still here, still played as much as he did over the young guys who deserved more playing time, to give you this kind of performance, disgusting. D-.
Shit, and I thought I was going to be the one that had to say something fucked up. My God.
If you're going to be big, at least have power. I mean, come on now.
I mean, I think he has power. It's just not good power at all. I also gave it a D-. He's just so he's just the epitome of this team. Just slow, old, unathletic, uninspired. I mean, he just doesn't do anything. There's nothing that this guy does well. And even though he's here to hit, his hitting profile just sucks. He doesn't pull fly balls. his pitch selection is garbage. It is so goddamn bad. Most of the zone, this guy can't even reach because he's so goddamn fat. I mean, he is so limited as a player that, like, there is just no, and I think that we've talked about this way too many times, but I'm going to say it again. There is literally no way you can justify this guy being here next year. There is no way you can justify that, especially with Mark Vientos showing somewhat of promise, especially with DJ Stewart even performing on a minor league deal. There is no goddamn reason why this guy should be here. Like, I understand that, like, they needed a bat, but, like, don't get a bat that needs so much to succeed. He needs a mental break. He needs to face right-handed pitching. He needs to, I mean, there's nothing that this guy does well, and there's nothing that this guy provides to still be here. To be honest, I mean, Billy Epler, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I really thought that at some point he would be gone. There was stretches where it's like, oh, he's not playing for 4 days. He's not playing for 5 days. I expected Daniel Vogelbach to be sent out of here. He should have been DFA'd. I don't know how the fuck he survived. How is he still here? And I understand the team wasn't winning. The team was not competing at that point. They were on their way out. They sold at the deadline, whatever. But you had to see what you got from the young talent. And him being here, just blocking so many situations, it just did not make any sense. You needed to see the young guys not play as platoons. And Vogelbach is just, there's nothing there. He doesn't really do anything well. And the fact that we gave up a controllable reliever for this guy is just, it sucks, especially when you see how how this bullpen has performed this year. It would have been nice to have a younger arm. And it's just, the Mets just refused to address this, and they half-assed it. And they half-assed it with a fat ass, basically. That's how I'm looking at it. And, I mean, at this point, again, you can't justify this guy being here next year. I don't understand. Like, I can't see any scenario where you're like, Daniel Vogelbach has to be here next year. And it scares me because I know Stearns does have a connection to Daniel Vogelbach. He did trade for him. But I don't see any situation where he can be here. And I know you guys completely agree. We don't need to continue to go on that. Okay. So, let's move. I want to actually put a pitcher in here. I want to talk about Jose Quintana because he did have that late return, basically at that point when the Mets season was completely falling off. But overall, he was very, very solid, especially for the value that you brought him in for. Frank, I'll start with you. How'd you feel about Quintana?
Yeah, I gave Quintana a B+. I think he definitely did pretty good. He actually lived up to his numbers pre-injury. And the fact that he was able to still do that despite the very unusual injury, I think is really good. The two things you have to love about Quintana: keeps the ball in the ballpark, doesn't walk batters. I think you do that, you're golden. I think as long as you do those two things, you really give yourself a chance. And that's how you felt with Quintana. He kept doing games, 5 innings, 6 innings here, there, 2 runs, 3 runs. Walked a little bit more batters than he liked, but overall the walk percentage turned out okay. He had a couple starts where the walks were a little bit of an issue, but for a veteran starter, for the contract that they gave him, I think he does what he needs to do. It's unfortunate that he was slotted in to be maybe the 4. And because of obviously Scherzer and Verlander being gone, the expectation increased a lot. But I think if the Mets do add to this rotation, you have Senga at the top. If they get another couple of nice arms in there and Quintana does become your 4 or 5, I think he's perfectly fine in that role. And he could get the job done as a guy every 5 days who just keeps you in games. And that's all you're really looking for. So I think overall it was a good season for Quintana. Again, he wasn't crazy good. So that's why I'm giving him the B+.
All right, before I go to Andrew, make sure to like the stream if you guys haven't already. We have been live already for an hour and a half, and we still got some other guys to grade. So this one's a lot bigger of a marathon than I expected it to be, but there's a lot of things to talk about with how this team kind of crapped out this year. So Quintana, Andrew.
Yeah, again, solid B. Again, he was the prototypical number 5 starter. Like, if this rotation was actually deep, you would love that at your 5 or your 4. 3.5 ERA. You know what? He's a 5 and fly type guy. He's just a crafty lefty, and to have that different look in a series is good. And having him back $13 million, and if he has if he duplicates and has another good year, this is another solid trade chip for next year's deadline. If the season doesn't go the way some hope, it's another decent trade chip. So again, for $13 million, the Mets have done a lot worse, giving up pitchers for $13 million. Hello, Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha. So for $13 million, to be.
Oh God. Why'd you have to do that? Okay. Overall, Quintana, I mean, I was actually pretty surprised. I'm not gonna lie, because I saw from his rehab, the velo was like really, really down, and like it just did not look like, he was able to give you some quality. But what I didn't realize is how ridiculously good this guy's command is. And that's the only way that you can get by with stuff like the way that he has, is pinpoint command. And this guy knows how to locate, and it shows with how many times this guy gives up home runs. Not many. And I think that he was great overall. I think that he was a breath of fresh air compared to some of the other guys that have pitched for us this year, and as to compared to what they were getting paid. Am I, waving the flag for him? Am I standing him forever? Am I sending him love notes? No. But would I consider trading him this offseason? Sure. If I get a good, decent enough return, I'm fine with it. Obviously the rotation depth is something that's into question, so I think that they're going to keep him. But again, he's a solid guy that you can get a decent return for if they do it. I know that they did shop him a little bit around the trade deadline because a lot of people were impressed with his rehab. I wasn't impressed with his rehab, but I guess that's because I guess I'm not working in a front office for that. But all I can say is it was solid, and it wasn't as stressful as compared to a lot of the other guys that we expected a lot more from. And he did better than Taijuan Walker. So that's all I really care about. Fuck that guy. But Matt Ibanez is in the chat right now from Till Mets Do Us Part. We did a multi-stream with him during the trade deadline. For those of you guys, go check out their show as well. Anything else on Quintana? I don't think so. Okay, let's continue with the pitching, and let's talk about another veteran who is the exact opposite. Pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. Let's go to Carlos Carrasco. Ooh, okay. 36-year-old season, coming off of, elbow surgery, and then he had another surgery or something. They had the hamstring surgery in the first year that he was here. It's definitely not been a good Mets tenure for Carlos Carrasco, and it has completely ended now. Andrew, last licks on Carlos Carrasco from what you've seen.
Yeah, and if you're going to get a trend, I'm not wasting breath on bums, but another F again. And I'll steal a quote from our co-host, Frank. He's a minor league pitcher. This dude was cooked. Like, as Matt says, it's a burnt cookie. That man was left in the oven about 48 hours longer than it needed to be. So, thank God he's pending UFA. Goodbye. It was the right move, and I will say it was the right move to pick the option up. Exploring trades would have been smart, but they didn't. But yeah, it was just. It was worse than batting practice again. Giving John Maine a great stretch of just being dog poo.
Okay. You are name dropping way too much today. Okay. Frank, what do you got for Carrasco? Brutal. Mike's muted.
Don't know why I'm muted, but
even though I probably know what the grade is already.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't even need to ask. It's definitely an F. I mean, here's a guy who I didn't want back in the offseason. I really didn't see a reason to bring him back. I felt that based off of his injuries and performances as a Met, we knew, again, with his age, he's only getting worse. And you saw that again this year. I just didn't see the purpose of it. We said they should have aimed younger. I felt with a team that already had such an old top of the rotation, you didn't need that trend to continue at the bottom half as well. So for me, obviously, Cookie's a great guy. His best days are behind him. He's not good anymore, so I don't want to bash him too much. But he didn't pitch well this year. His Met career hopefully is over. Hopefully he does well elsewhere like all other former Mets do. I wish him nothing but the best, but you didn't pitch good, so you get an F. Sorry.
Didn't pitch good, understatement. I mean, overall, I can just tell you, every time I saw this guy on a mound, I knew that this was going to be a problem. And I knew that he's just going to continue to get worse. At the beginning of the season, this guy was relatively in the 88 to 89 mile an hour fastball range, right? And we're seeing a lot of pitch clock violations from this guy, and we're also seeing him complain about the pitch clock and everything. So, I mean, it just got to a point where nobody understood why he was still here. Like at that point, you had some young pitchers in AAA who are not great, but you could have give them a chance, like Mike Vassell, who is a 5 at best. But you want to see something from a younger guy, and Carlos Carrasco was just here for too long. And we all know that he's a free agent. He was a free agent at the end of the year. They should have traded him. They should have moved him. He made 25 starts last year. He, sub 4 earned run average, something like that. That has value to other teams. And for some reason, they did not want to move him for younger pieces. And I understand the lack of rotation depth, the lack of uncertainty. I was fine picking up the option, but the fact that he was here for so goddamn long, and there was talks about them trading him, and they kind of just balked at it. I feel like they kind of just half-assed the rest of this rotation of where they're really, really relying on their depth as to where Carlos Carrasco is at some point, he is going to come towards the worst. And he did. I do wish him nothing but the best. That injury towards the end of the year, the fifth fracture, I actually have to shout out my dad here because I told him about this injury, saying like Carlos Carrasco's season is done. And he's like, he was like, basically no way. There's no way that's a real injury. They just made this a phantom injury. He's like, Vogelbach, make yourself useful. Drop this weight on Carrasco's pinky. He'll be out for the year. Like at that point, I mean, it came to the point where why the hell was he here? Like, why the hell was he still here when you had some younger guys you could have gave a chance to? And I just a lost cause. I feel like there was a better solution for Carlos Carrasco at tons of different points in the season, and they just didn't go that route. And now they get basically just nothing for him, and he's just going to leave in free agency. So, let's go to a position player. This one should be pretty quick. All right, how quick you doing this one, Andrew? Go ahead.
Fucking F. Why are you still here? Free Luke Ritter.
Okay. Frank?
Yeah, I'm also going F. It's just been too long. And why? Just, like I said, why are you here? What do you do? I mean, I could only get away with but at least he has a good glove and he does cool, tricks and stuff like that. The guy's better off as a magician than he is a baseball hitter at this point in time. I mean, that all of his biggest highlights are him doing non-baseball things. I mean, catching bats and doing weird stuff. He's good at that. But as far as hitting baseballs, he tends to struggle. So I'm done with it. I don't want to see him as a man anymore. He's just been here for far too long. We have Lindor. There is just no reason. I mean, the guy, like, if you're going to be a weak bat, at least have speed and steal some bases. He's one of the slowest players I've ever seen in my life, so he doesn't even make up for that. I mean, like I said, if you're going to be weak bat, at least have some speed. He's got nothing. So I'm done with it. Good beard, not a good bat. See ya, hopefully never again. F.
I want to say something before you go do your shtick. This man has 4 career big league homers.
Yeah, there it is.
Obviously, 2 of them have come off of Darren O'Day. I've been in attendance for the other 2, which is fucking pathetic. The Rodney homer, and then against St. Louis when I was chilling with my friends, and I was shit talking him the whole game. Go into the museum. Oh, I hear Gary Cohen, it's out of here. And I just look over and it says Luis Guillorme, and I'm like, this motherfucker. So, yeah, enough's enough. There's younger guys who can do his role better with higher prolific prospects to lower, journeyman prospects. There are guys that can do his role better and can potentially hit a homer more than once every couple of years. So, enough's enough. Buck's gone, so there's no more Buck crush. He should not be on the 40-man roster next year.
All right. Well, we all know, at one point, I mean, I really did like Luis Guillorme because he was just fun, right? He was fun. He was funny. But, it's run its course at this point. I think at this point, what does he do? Let's be real for a second. I also gave him an F. I mean, for the limited time that he was here, this year, he obviously got hurt or whatever. Was that in the Boston game or something? Hurt himself. Of course, he had to come back the last week of the season because, we had to make a very key piece to this roster come back. Yeah, I definitely think this is one of the pieces that you can let go of next year. I'm hoping that they non-tender him. And I hope that this is not a Stearns guy whatsoever. From what I've heard from Stearns, it's power and pitching. So that's not Luis Guillorme. So move on.
I mean, he's got some pitching, but not much power.
He does have some pitching, yes. I think that at this point it's a novelty, and it's just yeah, okay, we get it. A joke can only be so funny for so many times, right? I mean, yeah, he's got the beard, he's got all he's funny talents, but it's at this point, if he's getting regular playing time and playing like this, what's the goddamn point? I think at this point, it's run its course. There's no need for Luis Guillorme anymore. Okay, speaking of no need and major concern, let's move to Starling Marte. Now, this is something that's going to scare me to death, I think, for the next 2 years. And partially being the numbers below the screen, below us, as to why. But what do you guys think about Marte as of right now? This is tough.
All right. For Starling Marte, I mean, here's a guy that I really love to watch play the game of baseball. I mean, obviously, he had a tremendous year last year. Got hit in the hand, really changed the Mets lineup at the number 2 spot, a spark plug guy. But this season, coming off that core surgery, the groin surgery, everything like that, just never, ever looks like the same guy. And now there's talks that maybe he needs the surgery again. To me, we knew really? He had the. I saw it somewhere a little while ago that he might need another procedure somewhere. To me, with all the injuries that he's had in his career, I think he's done. I really feel like it's over. For me, if I could get anything for him, particularly a young player, I would do it. I don't think it's worth the risk at this point because, like we said, I mean, once you get older, you're just going to get worse. I mean, we knew that year 4 was going to be a problem. We were hopeful for year 3, but I think with this kind of injury and how poorly year 2 was, I think year 3 is not going to be great, and I think year 4 is going to be so bad that if you could get, even if you got to pay off, like you had to do with Verlander, Scherzer, even if you got to pay off some of that contract to get him gone, I think it's worth it because I feel like at this point, he's just going to be taking up playing time. He doesn't have it anymore. This is a guy that needs his speed. He needs his lower half. If it's compromised, he's not going to be what he's supposed to be. I mean, he's a guy that relies on athleticism to do all the things he does. High ground ball hitter, stolen base guy, outfielder. Like, he needs to run in order to be productive. He's not a guy who could be a fat guy that just sits there and hits long fly balls. Like, it doesn't work like that for his play style. So, I mean, for me, I gave him, I think it was like a D, but long term, I'm just very concerned for him. And it stinks because he is such an exciting player to watch. And I do love to watch him when he's going right. And just last year, as a Met, he was doing so many good things. But now, I'm just very concerned about him going forward.
What do you got, Andrew?
Yeah, this guy's just jumping around like a dumbass. We said when the deal was signed, we hope the first 2 years are good and pray to God those last two. And it started in year 2. And yes, this is a guy, even when his prime, he was always injured too when he was in his prime. So again, an aging guy coming to the Mets. So add that lull factor. Year 1 was great. Like we said, all-star appearance, played really well. Year 2, he decides to fall off the map. And like we said, this might have to be another McCann situation where you're eating a shit ton of money to move him, especially once we get to the offseason content. The Mets are going to need at least 2 major league starting outfielders, at least, because of Starling Marte. Even if, he comes back and gets a surgery, we know his track record. We know he's going to have an oblique or a hammy or an ankle, and he's going to miss time. So you can't bank on this guy playing, hell, even 81 games anymore, especially at his age. Like we said, he's a fun player when he's going right, and we were excited when the deal happened. But we said he's got year 1 will be fine. Hope year 2 is good, then all hell breaks loose after that. And it happened in year 2. And if they try to look to move him, and again, we'll see where the payroll is going to be. Again, we're going. There shouldn't be a tax, but we'll see. Again, we'll see what it becomes. This might be another McCann situation where you're just eating more money and throwing it in the goddamn bin of players that, again, this was the Epler regime, that first offseason, that Black Friday shopping. 2/3 of it's already gone. There's still 1 to go. So I gave it a D.
Okay, well, I think we'll have a clean sweep of the letter D. It scared the crap out of me from the very beginning, giving him this contract, the hard 4 years, and I feel like you're going to pay the price for it no matter what. Just overall as a player, this year, Marte stunk. Marte overall was, in my opinion, the worst hitter in this lineup every day. Like, he was the worst hitter in this lineup, especially from what you saw compared to what he was providing from the 2-hole last year. This is a shell of a player just completely taking a full-on drop as to compare to what he did last year. I mean, the all-star caliber season that he had, then he has the surgery, the double groin surgery, he has the finger, the finger breaking or whatever, and he played through that. I mean, even Matt just said it in the chat. I mean, the defense, dear God, what happened to that? Just overall as a player, everything went wrong for Starling Marte. And I think that, Marte had a concussion when he was... I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that, another thing that I don't like is obviously guys playing through injuries, and, that there's no excuse for that. And overall, when I say that, I mean, he stunk. He really was not good this year at all. And I'm really, really scared, especially in these next 2 years, because we have just 2 hard years, and, maybe they can find a way to restructure this deal or something. But, I mean, what's done is done. And it just continues to, be a situation that I don't want to be a part of, but they're going to be a part of no matter what. And that's what I'm really, really scared about. But overall, I just gave him a D. And I'm not looking forward to these next 2 years. If they can find a way to move on from him, it would be nice. And, it's a boomer. It was a boomer bust. And right now it's looking like a bust, and you still got 2 more years signed to him. And I, to be honest, I hope that he's not starting in right field on opening day. I really do. I don't think that you can count on him being the player that he was from the beginning. Okay. I realize that we don't have a certain player on here. So I will add him because I'm pretty sure I did make a graphic for him. But let's get to a very controversial one at this point, especially between all of us. Let's talk about Mr. Jeffrey. Okay. What to say about Jeff McNeil? He was placed on the IL this week. So a partially torn UCL in his left elbow. And he will not undergo surgery. I'm going to hold it in. I'm going to let you guys go. Andrew, how do you feel about our guy, Jeff McNeil?
God, he would have been so great in Cincinnati. He was right there. But let's talk about this season. Let's stop living in the. Let's just talk about 2023. And let's just start with the most obvious attribute. WRC plus. This man was league average. Slap that average. For a guy who they extended, was, again, one of the two guys that Epler's like, you know what? Let's lock this gerbil up downtown for 4 more buyout of arbitration years and add a couple years. So good batting average, which, again, we had a bounce back year after a shit year the year before, to this year, a 270 average. You tell me that's Francisco Lindor. Okay, take it. Hell, that's freaking Alvarez. We're going nuts. That's Starling Marte. A little down. But this is supposed to be the batting average guy. That's all he does. And I've seen people talk about the flexibility and the utility position. Can you shut the hell up? Sorry. About the versatility of Jeff McNeil. And here's where I slap in the face of these people that say, oh, he's more valuable. Oh, he plays. Yes, he might play a lot of position, which is very valuable to a team. But when you take a league average bat and take him out of second base and stick him in left field or right field, that's not good offensive value for those positions. Him at second base, fine. Light hitting position, he can stay there and he can play there. And, he's an average defender everywhere. But the fact that this guy is playing in the outfield now, majority of the time, with obviously Ronnie coming up and taking his position, putting him in the outfield, he can play it cool. His offensive value is horrific in the corners because that's more power prolific positions. But hey, he plays everywhere. I gave him a C because he had it last again when the DJ Stewart when the season was over, he got a little hot streak going to bring his batting average up to 270. So I give him a C. Guy should have been traded a year ago. Please call Seattle in the offseason. Colton Long sucked. Please get some of their young pitching and ship this guy out of here. If Ronnie is anything to what he's been in the little short sample size, you don't need this guy. Call up Seattle and get this guy out of here.
See, I don't have a memory of this. I have such an awful memory, so you'll have to remind me or tag me in it. I don't know. But okay. Frank, how do you feel about Jeff McNeil?
I don't feel great. I mean, this definitely was a really disappointing year. I also gave him a C plus. He did still finish with the 2.5 WAR, so he still is doing some productive stuff. Again, 270, he batted 291 the second half. Strikeouts are still low, so he still had that going for him. And you know what? Now it's like you hope that the elbow was the reason why he wasn't himself. But I find hard to believe where in the second half is when he got it going. And if it was an injury, he would have got worse as the year goes on. So I really don't know how much the elbow really impacted his performance. But I think now going into next year, that's his make or break year for me, because I was willing to overlook the bad year in 21 when he had the good year last year, but I can't do good year, bad year. Absolutely not. You can't be on a 5-year contract, good year, bad year. So we'll see what happens with Mauricio. Maybe him and Jeff battle it out in spring training as far as who's going to be the second baseman. And then we'll see what McNeil's role turns out to be. Are the Mets actually going to add 2 really good corner outfielders? I hope so. But if they don't, you feel like if Mauricio's playing really well, maybe McNeil goes there, or maybe Mauricio's playing third. We'll get to that later, and Jeff McNeil gets to stay at second base. So I'm very disappointed because I know he is definitely capable of better. He's been better in the past, but I am worried. I am now officially concerned because I can't do all this inconsistent stuff. That's not going to fly. I need to know year in, year out who you are, what you're going to do for the team. So even though he's my favorite Met, I'm giving him a C+.
Well, I mean, this has just been like league average play, so I mean, I'm going to also give him a C. But I have officially gotten to the point where I'm done. I've had enough. I need to see them move on from a core member of this team that's not Michael Conforto, and that's Jeff McNeil. This is a movable deal, right? This is a movable extension. 3 years, you got a team option, you got value in this contract. For all of the Mets fans that say he can play so many goddamn positions, trade him. If he's so goddamn valuable, trade him. There's no goddamn reason to justify keeping him here. All of the World Series titles that we've won? I mean, this guy is an old school hitter. Okay? It probably could help from the top of the lineup, but you're getting more production from Brandon Nimmo at the top of the lineup. You gave Brandon Nimmo $162 million to be your leadoff hitter. This guy is just an obsolete piece to this lineup. The fact that I have to see him consistently and inconsistently going in and out of the lineup of batting fifth behind Pete Alonso. And then I have to see this dude bat third and see him bat second. Like, no, he can't bat from any of those positions anymore because it just doesn't work. I understand he didn't need the no shift. He didn't need the this. He didn't need that. But you need good quality of contact, and he doesn't do that. Every time he pulls a fly ball, doesn't hit it hard enough. Every time he doesn't pull a fly ball, he gets frustrated and he screams and he thinks that the world's against him. No, you just suck. You're not a good hitter. You're not that good of a hitter. Singles don't mean shit. They don't mean anything. All they do is set up the double play. That's literally all they do. If you put him in the leadoff spot and a power hitter after him, a power hitter with an uppercut, they're going to hit the ball on the ground. Jeff McNeil ain't stealing second base. So it's a double play. It's not an efficient way. There's no real reason this guy should be in the lineup. There's no reason why he should still be here. Not to mention, like we say before, this guy's 31 years old, still screaming at himself, still not making it any better. I'm tired of it. I'm done. I've had it. Okay? And I'm sure he's going to have a great year next year because of the good year, bad year. It still is obsolete. Because all he does is hit singles. That's it. I don't need one base outcomes anymore. I see this guy foul off a high sinker. I see him foul off a hanging slider because he can't make any quality of contact to it. At this point, I'm done. And the Mets need to move on. I understand they already signed him because they're a sucker for batting titles for some reason. But like at this point, I'm done. And then the fact that he was probably playing through an injury, that's just like that's last straw of the last straw for me. I'm done. You chose to play through that injury. It's not an excuse. I don't want to hear it. If it's a partially torn UCL, and from Jeff McNeil himself, he said, I've been dealing with something like this all year. Get the fucking surgery then. It's just irresponsible to do shit like this. You're just going to make it worse and worse and worse for yourself. I don't know if it affected his swing or not. We all know Shohei Ohtani's got a UCL thing and he's still hitting or whatever. But like that's like left-handed hitter, right-handed hitter. This guy's batting left-handed, so maybe it does affect something like that. But it's just an obsolete hitter. And I've talked about this for 3 fucking years now. He's just like, it just doesn't add anything to a lineup like this. There's no reason for him to be here. I think it's time to move on, in my opinion. Frank, anything else you want to add to that? Andrew, anything? I'm done. I'm done. I've had enough. I just everything about Jeff McNeil frustrates me at this point. Okay. Let's move to the relievers. Some relievers. Let's go to Adam Ottavino. Now, we brought back Adam Ottavino on a 2-year deal. He's got a player option. Now, in a vacuum, you can probably say this has been a quality year for Adam Ottavino. But then you look at what we have below there. 18 of his 22 earned runs allowed this year are all in high leverage situations. This is without Edwin Diaz here. You had David Robertson out for he was gone for half of the year. This guy coming in to tie games, just choking. The walks are back up. Home runs are up again. And that's why you see the wins above replacement so low, because he did not come through for them when they needed him to. Adam Ottavino. Andrew, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is why you don't bring back a 38-year-old reliever, and why do not even look at David Robertson, because, he had a great first half, whatever, great first season. Look up and you bring him back in year 2. And like that beautiful graphic says, he's going to be back here again next year, because 7.25 million reasons why he will be back in this bullpen. And hopefully he's not in high leverage situations and not needing to be the 8th inning and 9th inning guy, but we'll see. I gave him a D, because again, I put the game on, the first game, when he came into a game against the Marlins, and he had a 2.83 ERA. I'm like, oh shit, what now? If he don't get a sub-3 ERA, and then incoming giving up the 3 runs against the Marlins, I'm like, here's the Adam Ottavino I remember. So give him a D. He's going to be stuck here again next year. Again, is this another potential? We didn't talk about the other catcher. I just realized that, which I don't think he did play. Did he hit the plate?
I had him. I had him.
Good.
Okay, I thought about, because this is just another situation where a bad player can opt into his player option. So gave him a D.
Okay. Frank, Ottavino.
Yeah, for me, I gave Otto a C. I think all in all, like I said, the vacuum wasn't terrible, but I think for what they paid, the really unfortunate part is going to be here next year. Wasn't as good as he was last year. Again, why you're bringing back 38 people consistently so many times with pitchers, I don't know, but they like to do it. Hoping that's something that changes under the Stearns regime, that we stop making that the norm, that those are the players that we target. So I think for me, it's a C. I really don't want to see him back next year. I feel like we got what we need out of him. I'm done with it, but player options, so Mets don't have much say in it. So, I mean, we'll see what Otto decides. I feel like he's opting in, most likely. 7.25 million isn't too much. So maybe you hope that some team would be dumb and overpay, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, I also went with a D. We needed him in high leverage spots, and he just did not come through. Stuff has regressed. Hanging sliders once again. Doing his usual heart attack thing that he was doing before he got here last year. Fastball velocity's down, and I don't know. I just, the type of stuff that he has, it could be helped with a Stearns pitching lab or something like that, but I'm not counting on it. And I just don't see any potential way that this guy is in the 7th, 8th, or 9th. There's just no reason. I think that he's shown his age already, and I understand relievers can be, but like the Mets needed to aim younger. They aimed older with the back end of the bullpen, and it put a little bit more of a spotlight onto Adam Ottavino with Edwin Diaz going down. And same went for David Robertson. Robertson was good. Ottavino, not so much. But yeah, I don't understand why I still don't understand why they brought him back. But it made sense if Diaz was available, but still I would have still aimed younger, and for some reason they just didn't. Okay. The other reliever that is still here and most likely a team option that we most likely will be gladly to pick up is Brooks Raley. Now, Raley, We traded for him in the offseason. Great. I mean, great lefty. We talked about him for a long time. I mean, he was good. I was expecting a little bit more, but you have full team control through the 2025 season. A team option for 2024, so you have control over him, and I think that they're definitely going to pick that up. He's kind of one of those crafty lefties from like similar to Milwaukee that they've kind of. So I think Raley is going to be a someone that they bring back. But how do you guys feel about his season this year? Frank, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I gave him a B. I mean, because he did have a good year, but I was, as far as expectations, I was hoping for a little more. I was expecting a little more. Particularly, I mean, I just felt like he was a little streaky. I mean, the beginning of the season, it was a little rough. I think he spent a little bit of time on the injury list. He came back, was doing all right. End of the season wasn't so great. So I wasn't too crazy about that because we did have, this vision of, okay, you have Raley, you have Robertson, you have Diaz, and then you have Ottavino like the fourth option. Okay, that's a pretty solid back end of the bullpen. But then when Diaz is hurt and Robertson is traded and Ottavino isn't good, and then Raley's kind of, pretty good, it wasn't exactly what we hoped for and what we were expecting. So that's why I gave him a B. But I definitely am fully in for bringing him back at that number. That was obviously one of the really appealing things about the trade was that not only was he under team control, but at a respectable number. The fact that he's getting paid less than Ottavino, I think really tells you a lot. So I'm all in favor for bringing him back next year, but I'm just like slightly disappointed, but all in all, it was a pretty good year.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I saw like some kind of Aaron Loop take from you.
Yeah. He was okay.
Dickhead.
Again.
You got too confident.
Hey, good MLB to show card, good race pitcher. I got hype. Good baseball savant page, and it's okay. Again, I gave him a B as well. Had some good stretches. Had some, as a reliever. Obviously, picked the option up, but I would be shopping him in the offseason with a 36-year-old lefty. Yes, the Mets obviously have needed lefties for a while. He's 36, so coming off a solid year. See if you can get a couple pieces for him. Again, would I be mad if he's on the roster opening day next year? No. But pick the option up and see if there's a team willing to give you a couple pieces for a guy who's 36. And, again, I'm okay with him having back, but it would be a guy, again, just got to peek around. If you can maybe get a younger version of Keyshawn Askew type piece, and we'll see. So, again, overall was a B. Again, like you said, kind of expected a little bit better. But for what you got, again, the bullpen was depleted. His role definitely got expanded. He was okay.
Yeah, I also actually went with a B. I think that he was good. Not as good as we kind of advertised him at the beginning. Obviously, there were some moments. But this is one of the prime examples why Jeremy Hefner needs to go. This is a guy in Brooks Raley who throughout his entire career, even before he got great in the KBO, never walked anyone. This guy never walked. This guy had amazing command. He knew how to control contact. And now, career high in walks. Like, this is my problem with Jeremy Hefner. Of how this guy, I don't know how he shapes some of these pitches with some of these guys. I don't know if it's just old age with him, but he's
actually relatively young, all things considered.
But the stuff was still there for Raley. Like, you still had the profile of good stuff with Raley. It's just like I just wasn't controlling the strike zone much, and then that just wasn't Brooks Raley. Even though he still gave equality, it just could have been a lot better. And, with a guy of his type of profile and stuff that he has, this is someone I would definitely bring back, obviously. I'd love to see, a Stearns revamp of this because we've seen a lot of things happen with that in Milwaukee of some, crafty lefties and, guys with hard sinkers and explosive sliders. So I'd be fine with that. But I do agree with Andrew. I would shop this. I would definitely shop Brooks Raley. Again, it's the age. I would definitely 100% move on, move to be younger, obviously. But, if they don't want to take his performance here for granted and they just want to keep him, I'd be fine with it. Again, this is a lot better than a lot of, other lefties that we've had come in here, like, Joely Rodriguez. I trust him a lot more than, some other lefties that we've brought in here this year. So, you know what? I'd be fine bringing him back. I'd be fine trading him. I think that he has good value either way. And, if you have a lefty in the bullpen, you have a lefty in the bullpen that's Brooks Raley. I'm fine with it. I don't see him falling off anytime soon into where he's completely unplayable on the roster. So, speaking of unplayable, let's get to the man who has been here for about 18 years. Our favorite of them all. The Lucas Duda trade was a monumental trade to this franchise that brought us Drew Smith. And he's the same Drew Smith that he was from the beginning. Andrew, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Drew Smith? Last time to rag on him. Go ahead.
Again, just like with Carrasco and just like with the other guys, I'm not wasting my time with this minor league reliever. It's an F. This guy, it's like a cat. He's got a bajillion lives, and he will not die. And again, we won the Lucas Duda trade. If we're still flexing that, shut the hell up. He's what he is. He's not going to have this breakout, but we all kind of know if he does go to one of those pitching labs, we won't be surprised if he turns at like a sub-1 ERA and is great for like a Dodgers or Rays cheating lab team. But for the Mets, he is never going to be that. So let go. Non-tender him, DFA, outright cut him, sell him to Korea. I don't care. He better not be on the Vegas roster, Syracuse roster, Binghamton roster, St. Lucie roster, sure as hell not the Mets roster. Get him the hell up out of here. Enough. F.
Your mic's a little bit in a tunnel. You might want to fix that. But Frank, this one's all yours. Go ahead.
Oh, God, I mean, I'll give him a D-. I'll be generous, so maybe he'll unblock me. Which honestly, at this point, it's been so long, I don't really care anymore. Because I was right all along. The guy is just a flat-out minor league pitcher, just not very good. His win-loss record, I feel, is generous because it feels like there was. I can't even count how many games this guy blew. Where even if it wasn't so much that he got the loss on the record, he just caused the game. Like, the Mets are in it. They have a lead. It's tied. It's close. And he just comes in, gives up his bombs and walks. And it's like, even the innings where he didn't give up a run, there was at least 2 base runners on. I'm just so tired of it. I mean, he was one of the longest tenure in Mets. And it's just, it doesn't make sense why. Like, what do they see in him for him to be here this long and continue to do the same crap and continue to be the reason why they lose games? I just cannot believe it. And like Andrew said, he better not be anywhere in the organization. I don't care what level, it's just off of the Metropolitan franchise. Please, please, please. I just can't take it anymore. I mean, it's just been too long. I mean, please no more Drew Smith. Please.
Yeah, I went with a D-. I guess I'm not gonna give it to F because I guess he started off decent.
He always does.
The first 14 innings and he sees the models and loses it. But I just enough. It's over. It's not happening. He's not gonna break out. It's done. He has strikeout stuff. Can't locate it. Can't command it. He can't do anything. He can't make anyone whiff. He can't make anyone chase. He has dog shit secondary stuff. He leaves fastballs over the middle. Can't tunnel anything. He's not a good pitcher. We talk about this all the goddamn time. The biggest thing with relievers is the home run ball. He didn't give up as many as I thought he did. I thought he gave up like 20 this year. But the hard contact, the home runs, the walks. I mean, just he's not a good pitcher. His batted ball data is bottom 10 in everything since his debut. Out of all relievers, there's been hundreds and hundreds of relievers. He's been one of the worst relievers in baseball. It's done. Move on. How is he still here? How? Out of all of the relievers we have recycled in and out from, he is still here. How the hell is Drew Smith still here? He's a free agent at the end of next season. I can't take another year of this guy. I can't take another year of this guy. If David Stearns is the pitching guy that he is, he would cut bait right now with Drew Smith. It's just not going to get better. And then obviously Sticky Fingers Drew also got suspended for the sticky stuff and still sucks. He's still terrible. How many chances can you give Drew Smith at this point? How many? How many chances can you give to Drew Smith? The guy is horrible. He is brain rot every goddamn time he goes onto the mound. All right, let's move on to another pitcher, and that being Mr. Fuego himself, who came off of Tommy John surgery. Joey Lucchesi, overall gave us a pretty good sample for what we were expecting from him off of Tommy John surgery. Not the flashiest guy, but he's the churve master. What do you got for Lucchesi, Andrew? Give it to you.
Yeah, again, expectations were low. Hell, we thought most of the time, even when he was healthy last year, that the front office just hated him. And they're like, oh, we could use an arm, down the stretch. Oh, no, we're not going to use Lucchesi. Okay. But yeah, it's a small sample, but he pitched pretty well. Again, most of the starts, you think of the San Francisco start, you think of the couple he had down the season, the last 2 weeks of the season. Give it a B+. Again, I wouldn't mind him as kind of a long man, in that battling for, second lefty / long reliever in the bullpen. I would have no problem with him coming back, and obviously we have team control of him. So, again, I'd rather see him. I would have seen, again, like you said with Carrasco, would have rather seen him get longer opportunities instead of just chucking out Carrasco every week. And look what happens when they got rid of him. Okay, he got his shit pretty well. So, give him a B+. We'll see if he battles in spring, where his role potentially could be on next year's round.
All right, Frank, what do you think about Lucchesi?
Yeah, I was impressed by Lucchesi this year. Again, I mean, considering the expectations, Tommy John surgery, everything like that, I gave him a B+. And, it says on the bottom there, he had the late April return. That was that start against the Giants where his first start of the year, he pitched really, really good. And Carrasco was already struggling at that time. And I'm just upset that they didn't let Lucchesi keep getting a fair shot, a fair opportunity to be the number 5 starter, because we look at when it was all said and done, he definitely could have been it. I just don't understand why he wasn't given more of a chance. I really don't. That just doesn't make sense to me, because you see it, 8 and 9 starts running 3 earned runs or fewer. Like, what more were they looking for? Like, I that's what I just don't understand, is that why didn't he get more of an opportunity when he was healthy earlier in the season, when things still were, they still were competing for a playoff spot? I just don't understand that. I feel like there still is something there. There still is potential. He still is young. One of the very few players that we can say that about, especially when it comes to being a pitcher. A lefty, a funky lefty. I mean, I like what he has to bring to the table. And again, he had a good year, so I'm glad about that. I just wish they gave him more of a chance. So we'll see now, fully healthy. Does he get more of an opportunity, more of a fair battle in spring training to have a role in this team? We'll find out. But, all in all, again, B+.
B+. Okay. I also gave him a B+ because, it's just one of those arms that just came in here. I'm pretty sure he had quite a few top 5 starts for the Mets. Like, he had some really good outings. I don't understand why, to be honest, because I just don't think he's that great of a pitcher, but he gave you quality, and he was able to locate. He was able to give you innings and eat innings, and you can't really say that about many pitchers this year for the Mets. I'm not, fully raising the flag and saying that this guy, should be at the top of my list, but I definitely would be open to bringing him back next year and seeing what you can get from him. But obviously he's not as whatever, but he gave you innings. He's not flashy. He's not this. He's not that. But I think overall it was good quality, and I think he should have gotten a lot more of a he shouldn't have been one of the first guys out to get sent down to AAA. I think he definitely could have pitched a lot of the Carrasco innings that we saw this year. And, overall, I think he had a pretty good season, especially coming back from Tommy John surgery, being out for almost 2 years. So it was definitely impressive to see him come back like that. Not my ideal type of pitcher at this point, but overall, I think that Lucchesi definitely had a really promising season, and we'll see what we get from him and how he looks on the depth chart next year. Okay, speaking of preference of pitcher that I like, maybe let's get to Tylor Megill, the 7,000 feet in the air man, who I don't know what Tylor Megill is at all. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just going to say that, but you guys can take it away with that. Frank, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Tylor Megill this year?
Yeah, I'm not really quite sure because we have seen good Megill in the past and we've seen bad Megill in the past, and that held true the same this year. He's had another inconsistent season. I gave him a C+. I mean, I like that we saw the velo tick up towards the end of the season. We saw a couple of encouraging things toward the end of the season, but it's like we always say with Megill, can you build on it? And especially when it comes to being a starting pitcher, what are you going to get every 5 days out of Tylor Megill? I feel like that's something that we just don't know, and it's something that is really hard to evaluate and predict and project, because you're like, okay, can you give this guy a starting rotation spot when every now and then he gets hurt or just gets absolutely bombed with the long ball? I mean, it's just really tough to feel confident in Tylor Megill when there are those inconsistencies every single year, whether health or performance. So for me, I gave him a C+ because it just seems like even though he's still young, we still don't know what he is and like where he is going to end up being when it's all said and done.
Andrew Megill.
Yeah, I gave him a C. Again, just another one of these seasons where like, oh, there's promise, but then there's like 2 steps forward to 3 steps back. So he's not a guy who you can pencil in if he's, again, kind of the same role. He's your depth. Again, 6th, 7th starter, fine. You're not going to ever get frontline or middle of rotation guy. He could be a 5. Again, there's nothing more you're going to get out of him. I don't care what the velocity and, oh, he's got this. Jeremy Hefner's a moron and a terrorist. Did this with that. He's nothing more than an extra starter to have in a case of an emergency. Okay, you can call it Megill from Syracuse, come out of a spot start, go back down to the minors, or hell, try him back out in the bullpen and tell him full year. But again, you need to determine. I'm tired of this flippity flop. He's a reliever. He's a bull. Pick one and have him go a full offseason work of I'm a reliever or I am a starter. Enough of this, well, you got to wipe your ass, so you have to be a reliever now, but this guy blew out his UCL, so now you got to be a starter. Enough of it. Determine what he is, if he's going to go throw 100 for 1 inning or throw 94 for 5. Pick one.
I mean, I went with a C too, because like I said, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. He's a different pitcher every goddamn time he takes out the mound. So I'm a big fan of Tylor Megill because I think that he could be really a lot better than he's obviously been, and we've seen a lot of potential of Tylor Megill, of where he's had like these points where he can show you dominance and strike out a lot of batters, but you're not getting that much length. You're not getting that much consistency. And I think that there's basically 2 ways that he can be successful, but they have to pick one. And if for some reason they've just continued to just go back and forth with this, Tyler Megill, it's either you keep him as a starter and he adds a cutter because he needs that, because there's way too much separation between that fastball and slider. Or you send him to the bullpen, you have him throw the harder slider he was throwing at the beginning of the year last year, and he becomes a 2-pitch reliever. Because you can't really have both. He's not going to go by commanding a changeup. The curveball, no. The fastball and slider need to be good. And if he has those two working, then he can be really good. But there's been a lot of consistency issues with the command and then the pitch shape. They have to somewhat figure it out. I'm hoping that Tyler Megill can be another one of the Stearns types of guys that they add a cutter to. He needs a cutter. Someone said in the chat, they said he learned his ghost for. No, give him Senga's cutter grip, please. Desperately. He could be so much better than he actually is. And he will be an ace next year. Next year, it's going to happen. Okay. Let's get to the real ace of this staff, David Peterson. Now, okay. This was a tale of two halves, but it ended decently. I'm not going to lie. He was absolutely terrible. One of the worst starters in all of baseball. And then he comes back from AAA, and he was pretty solid. Look a lot better. So, David Peterson, another one of these arms you're going to have to make some decisions with. Frank, I'll start with you.
Peterson, like Megill, good. I mean, bad in the beginning, then turned around, got better towards the end. So he's another C+. And David Peterson is a guy that, like we've talked about before, first-round pick. He's been here so long. We've seen good Pearson, we've seen bad Pearson, and what is he? And I'm going to take the sentiment that Andrew took with Megill. What is he? I mean, is he a starter or is he a reliever? You know what I mean? They really have got to get it all down. To me, I still think he's a reliever. I think that if he actually focused, like Carson said, like if he focused on his slider being one of his primary pitches out of the bullpen, particularly against left-handed hitters, I feel like there is some value there, because if he has a good inning, he has the arm to give you 2. And if he has a good inning, he has the arm to give you 3. But I think all in all, I'd rather give him a try as a reliever. I think that he is too inconsistent to have as a starter, because it's like if he has one bad inning as a reliever, okay, you can get him out. If he has a bad inning as a starter, oh well. I mean, you got, what are you going to do? Compromise your entire bullpen because Pearson is bad Peterson today? I don't think you can take those risks when you are a starting pitcher. So for me, I gave him a C+ because he was good when he came back from AAA. But I think going forward next year, give him a full spring training and everything as a reliever as the absolute last resort, because you can't, like I say, just got to figure out what some of these guys are. You can't rely on these inconsistencies. It's just not a proper way to assemble a baseball team at all.
Okay. What do you got, Andrew?
It's like I'm just sick and tired of talking about these two fucking idiots, and they're getting the Drew Smith levels of who can be less shit of the two of them. Gave him a C too. Again, what the hell? Like Frank, what the hell are you? Like, and if you're left-handed, you should have more value. The fact that you can throw from the left side, especially for this team that desperately needs someone to take it by the balls, be a future lefty, and you're just like, nah, I'm just gonna be average. What the hell is he? Is he a starter? Is he a reliever? I don't care. He had 7 shutout innings to end this season. Whoop-de-doo. Good for you. You finally had a good major league start. I'm just, again, these two guys, this is our pitching depth, and it's been this way for 3 years, it seems like. Who's going to stand up and take the job and run with it? And nobody seems to want to. So, they're the same grade, C, for crap.
I think you guys are being really hard on my guy, David Peterson. Cut bait, please. I get it. There's some promise there. He's looked fine, but like, this isn't a first round pick. This is not a first round pick. And he's been here for a long time. And we haven't really seen much improvement. We haven't seen just like him move the window at all. We've only seen him get worse, then get a little bit better than the first worst. Like that's how we've seen him go up and down. And, you know, I'm not here for it. I'm just not here for it. I just don't think he's a good arm. I just don't think he's got good stuff at all. I think his command sucks. I think his control sucks. I think his slider that he can't command that much it's got a good window, but he still can't locate a sinker. It still goes at the top of the fucking zone every time. He doesn't throw hard enough for that to get away with that. So this is one of the pitchers I'm ready to move on from. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities as to why you need to keep him here. Megill does. Talk about that later. But it's a different story. But I gave him a C because it's just, I still can't tell what he is. But like, again, first round picks come with expectation. We talk about this all the goddamn time. And we're going to talk about a certain first round pick who should be shot out of a cannon. But it comes with expectation. He has not met it. He had a good, decent year last year. But like, we're still just not seeing it. And I understand he's had some decent starts overall, but it's just not I just don't see a pitcher like this doing well against elite lineups when you need him to. If somebody gets hurt, if you need him to step in, it's just not going to happen. And that's what I'm looking for. Somebody who can be a competitive pitcher against good lineups. And I just don't see it. Okay. I had to add this guy because I forgot about him. I remember making a graphic, but apparently I didn't. So we'll just we'll go to Omar Narvaez, I guess. This one should be pretty quick, to be honest, because he's been pretty shit. But Andrew, so just pretend Omar Narvaez's stats are on the screen, everyone.
Well, there's not much there; just a bunch of zeros.
It's a D- because it would have been an F, but he homered off Taiwan Walker, so that's a productive AB. So it's a D-.
He did homer off in Taiwan Walker. Right?
Based off his contract, it's an F. I mean, what does this guy do? I still can't believe he got a 2-year deal. That's the thing that really just makes us think. Because like we said, it's not such a bad thing as a 1-year deal. But the fact they gave him 2 years is really just crazy. Because, I mean, what, $10 million? Oh, yeah, exactly. Going to make $7 million to sit on the bench. Why? You know what I mean? Like, again, I just felt that we had Omar Narvaez already. We have Tomas Nido. We didn't need to pay him this much money, especially if he wasn't going to be the long-term solution. You knew who that was and who it already is. So I just didn't understand it. So it's an F. I just don't get it. Is anyone going to want him? I thought it would have been a perfect fit for the Yankees once, they had their injury to Jose Trevino.
Frank,
what's up?
Injuries. Come on. Injuries.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, free pass, of course. Yeah, why not? I mean, this is just the land of excuses that we give here all the time. Yeah, definitely.
He doesn't like a former All-Star who was in 2019. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. The modern day McCann.
Yeah, the modern day McCann, yeah. I also gave it an F. What the fuck happened to this guy? Listen, I did not expect him to be great, but I expected him to be like average, but like he's not even good defensively anymore. It's been so bad. And listen, we all know why I'm okay keeping him here next year. We all know why, my own motive there. But like, why? Like, yeah, why? I mean, I understood being concerned about a 21-year-old catcher not being ready. It's a genuine concern to have. But like, especially with like the Mets pitching staff being so shit this year, it's like I just don't see the impact that he had at all this year. It was really disappointing. So it's an F. I would love to troll and give it an A+ for homering off of Taiwan Walker, but I'm going to keep the integrity of this. And yeah, so for those of you who want to know Omar Narvaez's stats, I apologize for that. I kind of forgot
There's
about
not much
it.
to say.
There's not really much to see. Okay. Let's move on to someone that I really want to talk about, which is Grant Hartwig. For those of you who do not know who Grant Hartwig is, he actually is quite a story. I'm not going to lie. Undrafted free agent in 2021. Basically went nuts throughout the minor league system, went from single A, double A, triple A, all in 1 year, dominated. They called him up, started off well, then it kind of just fell apart. But Andrew, I'll start with you. What do you got for Hartwig?
Fucking dog shit, F. I mean, again, guy we have hype for, but we're talking about what actually happened, and I don't care about the expected and with FIP and all that crap. He was dog water. Hot dog water. Trash. F.
That's not true. Okay. Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a D. There is a very, very small amount of potential. His walks weren't all the way bad. Long ball wasn't all the way bad. Does have some velo. So there's some stuff there, and he is a rookie. But I think, again, like I said, once you look at the results of what actually happened, I give him a D.
Okay. I went with a C for neutral for him. What? This is the first guy I give flowers to? I think he's got ridiculous stuff, but he's wild as fuck. He's very, very wild. And it's not just like the walks, it's just he's got so much movement that he's hitting batters. And he's a little too wild, but again, it's another arm that I'm hoping is refurbished under the next regime or something like that. Sinker, cutter, slider, all of them, hard pitches. I need to see the strikeouts go up a little bit more to obviously hit to the walks. But I think that if the Mets, were to try and develop some arms, this would be one of your guys right here. I'm hoping that he can be a lot better. And he started off showing off a lot of promise, and then it just kind of the wheels fell off of the problems that we kind of knew about, which was he has a lot of control issues, but he can command the zone pretty well. Okay. Another guy with control issues. Let's get to Jeff Brigham. Red hot to start it off. Trade with the Marlins came over. We got rid of Jeff Mangum. Or Magnum. I don't know.
I don't fucking know. Shit.
I don't know. For him, which apparently the Mets fans were so upset about. He did fantastic for the Marlins this year. But Jeff Brigham, this was brutal. Frank, I'll start with you.
Yeah, he gets a D-. I mean, like we said, he got to an okay start in the beginning of the year, but then overall it was just absolutely awful. Long ball, big problem. And then, the command issues, it just seems that he was another culprit of, Mets were in a game, and then Brigham comes in and just completely falls apart. So when you're the deciding factor in team losing games, it's really hard to give him any kind of confidence and faith to put on the mound. So D-.
Okay. Andrew?
F. Dog shit. Again, that Philly game still haunts me. Just fucking drill. Bases loaded. Here it comes. Drills him. That Met fan was all of us. Just fuck out. Just walked out. Just goodbye. F. I don't ever want to see this man throw another pitch in blue and orange, but knowing him, he's probably going to be our closer next year.
Okay. I'm also going to give it an F. Even though, I think he can, I still think he can be good, but oh my God. This was a disaster. He had one quick stretch where he was getting whiffs on his slider. But the main concern was a major concern, and that was his command and him just leaving too many things, getting way too much of the plate. And I think that there's a way that he can definitely figure it out. But I don't know how long of a leash they're going to give to him. But he's still young. I think they're going to give him another chance next year. He's probably going to start off in AAA. I'm pretty sure he also had that sicky stuff in AAA as well. So that's not good. But I'm sure he's going to be back next year, but I don't think he's going to be a top option, obviously. I'm hoping that they bring in a lot of pieces for the bullpen, obviously. I think that, I don't know. I think he's got a good profile as an arm, but it definitely did not show this year. Okay, let's keep moving along. I want to get to Jose Butto, who started the last game of the season. It was Buck's last ride. It was a very emotional game for everyone. We were playing with heavy hearts. Jose Butto. He came up here, and I'm not going to lie, he was decent overall. Andrew, how do you feel about Butto?
You know, again, we love the butt dog, and he was better than Tyler Megill. He was better than David Peterson, so he gets beat.
No, he wasn't. Stop.
Hey, look at the ERA. Sub-4 ERA from a depth guy.
Shut the fuck up.
Tyler Megill and these guys can have 5 ERAs. It's okay. It's a 5 ERA.
Shut the fuck up.
I'd rather be lucky than good, and Jose Butto's the definition of that. Had some good outings against some bad teams, sure. But again, as a 10th, 11th guy in the pitching depth, I'm fine with it. Again, it's what he is. He's not, again, I'm not saying, oh my God, this guy needs to be the 3 starter next year. No. But again, spot start, 11th, 12th man in the rotation, I'm fine with it. So I give him a B.
He's so stupid. 2.5 hours in. Frank, what do you got for Butto?
Yeah, I gave him a C. He ended up pitching all right late in the year when they called him back up. But to me, the thing about Butto is that you kind of know what he is. I mean, he's giving you the 5 innings. He's giving up a couple runs. You just feel like he's never going to give you a great start. So I guess again, we talk about as far as options, I mean, he is just very, very low on the pecking order for me as far as who I would want making a start in a emergency, as far as spot starter, injury, doubleheader, what have you. He's low on that list, but at least he kept them in games and wasn't, total blow-ups like some other pitchers that we've seen. So I gave him a C.
Okay. I also gave him a C because I think what he gave you was pretty average, like the average what a 5-starter would give you for a little bit of a sample. I'm not big on him. I really am not for the long term at all. But I think that if he's at the bottom of the depth chart, it's fine. I think that he's able to give you quality, but I'm not counting on him to do so. Like I'm not counting on him to do that. And to be honest, I was expecting him to have a little bit better control. But for the fly ball pitcher that he seemed to be, didn't give up that much as hard contact as I expected him to. But overall, it's an option if they need him, but he's not that high on the pecking order for me. I just don't think that there's really anything that's really, really special. And it seems like his best pitch is a changeup, and changeups need to be thrown out the window. Okay. Let's get to the rookies, the young people, even though I think we just did 2 rookies, but whatever. Technically, the big 4, whatever. Okay. Let's start with Mark Vientos.
Oh, you missed a rookie.
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna say we're missing a rookie.
I'll get to him.
All right.
He'll be one of our last ones. Let's get to Mark Vientos. Yeah, I think I spelled that wrong. The apostrophe, but whatever.
Yeah.
2.5 hours in. Who gives a shit? Okay. Mark Vientos. He's been a top prospect for a while in our top 10. We called him up. People have been barking for him because Daniel Vogelbach is fatter than all hell. What do you guys think of this 233 plate appearance sample? Andrew?
Yeah, I give him a B. Again, we started to finally see the contact. Again, we all know when he makes contact, it's going to be hard as shit. Started, making an actual good, the contact hit homers, which we wanted to see. We said this about a month ago. Me and Frank, we don't give a shit how hard he hits it if he doesn't start seeing some results. You started to see some results at the end of the season. And again, is he an option for DH? He kind of seems like a David Stearns type of guy, which you've seen some people say, Vento's going to get traded. I'd put good money he's probably on the roster because I said in last offseason's video, he's the guy that David Stearns would love. Got a power hitting, fat DH, well, not fat DH, but a guy that hits a ton of power. That's Mark Vientos, and now Stearns is here.
What do we qualify as fat now? It's like just such a wide selection.
It's just fat as just useless. But again, he's a guy that Stearns would go for. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's definitely on this roster next year and definitely not traded. So again, you started to see some results. Again, strikeouts are always going to be a problem. He doesn't play any lick of defense, which we told you about in Syracuse. He's a DH. Leave him there. Don't put him at third. You try him at first base. If somebody leaves, maybe. But again, keep him at DH. That's what he is. He's going to hit a shit ton of power. He's going to strike out a ton. That's what he is. So for the quality of contact, and again, seeing some homers at the end of the stretch, I gave him a B.
Okay. Frank, how do you feel about Vientos?
I mean, all in all, for Vientos, I ended up giving him a C. I'm glad that he started to hit those home runs towards the very, very end of the season. But all in all, I mean, when you look at the total numbers, leaves a lot to be desired. I feel like a lot of that had to do with the very inconsistent playing time he got when he first got called up. I still feel like we never really got that. And he did have an injury as well at one point. So we didn't get to see as much as I would like to as far as full-time, every single day DH to see what he truly, truly has. But I think as a rookie, you do see that the power is there. I mean, the power is unquestionable. The only thing is that he does have those J.D. Davis comparisons, as in how frequently he hits the ball hard. It's just a matter of hitting the ball. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The high strikeouts, low walks. So we'll see if he kind of put his strengths together and kind of minimize his weaknesses a little bit. Got to get the ball off the ground a little bit. Got to cut down the strikeouts. But we knew those were issues even in the minors as far as those were his two main problems. So if he could just kind of shorten that up a little bit and continue with the power hitting and actually lifting the ball, hitting those home runs, he could be a solid player for you. I mean, coming off the bench as a bat that plays every now and then, maybe like we talk about that righty DH, lefty DH, whatever, maybe he could be one of those guys for you.
I don't know what to make of this Mark Vientos sample because it kind of is just like the predicament that he was put in just with like the playing time that was just scattered around. And then we finally got to see him consistently play, and then we got a decent stretch from him. I think it remains to be seen, but we all know that there's a lot of upside. The certain power, the quality of contact that he is able to give you is, this is top 10% right here. Like, this is somebody that can make a lot of noise, but you just have to find some consistency with it. And that's really it. I think that his hitting profile has a lot. I think that he can definitely turn into a great bat, a 30 home run bat, something like that. But it's going to take some time, and it's going to take, reps and see what he gets. I don't like this guy at third base. I don't want to see him at third base at all. He's got complete stone hands. To be honest, I don't think he's as bad as the other guy, but I think that if he's going to play the field, he's going to be at first base. Like, that's it. That's all you can really put him at. I understand wanting to have like a power corner type of guy, but I don't know. The pitch selection needs to be a little bit better. I'm not going to lie that he can't really, he doesn't look great against the breaking ball. And that's what kind of sucks about it. But once we got to see him, pull the ball and, once we got to see him get consistent reps, we definitely saw it. And I definitely like it. The strikeouts, I really don't give a shit as long as he swings at strikes. The walks, everyone does that. So I don't care. But overall, I think he has a good hitting profile. I don't think he has a great hitting profile, but I think that he can definitely get better. And, we'll see, because I think that he has ridiculous raw power, and when he makes contact, that thing's going to go far. I'd love to see him pull a little bit more, but he's a lanky guy, so maybe it takes a little bit more time. But he has ridiculous raw power that he probably can use all fields. But I want to see him swing early. But other than that, let's move on. Just keep rolling. Let's go to another rookie, and his name is Francisco Alvarez. What a bright spot. All I can say, overall, the year doesn't look fantastic, but you know what? For me, having a catcher hit this many home runs is a fucking blessing. Frank, I'll start with you. How do you feel about your guy? What do you got?
I feel pretty good. I gave him A-. I feel like we saw some streakiness for sure. I mean, there is no doubt about it. We definitely saw some big hacks that came up short. But like you said, I mean, it is hard to get a catcher that good for that kind of power. And particularly as a rookie, it's even harder. I mean, you see the other guy that was on the list with him all year long, Johnny Bench, good a catcher as there is ever. So definitely off to a really good start for his career. And I think, you know what, the fact that he's a rookie, hopefully he makes those adjustments because he has to get better. Because don't forget, the season started very rough for Francisco Alvarez when he first got called up. So the fact that he was able to overcome that and make those adjustments get better, I hope that carries over into the next season as well. And defense was better than expected. I didn't see anything particularly terrible about his defense. He gets it done. And he makes up for it with his bat regardless. So I think all in all, he is a net positive. He's a plus. He's a guy that, I'll tell you what, I'd extend him like 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like I've always felt just so highly about this guy that he should be a top priority because guys like this, not common. So he's going to cost quite a large sum of money if he ever went to the open market. And I would try to avoid that at all costs because it was an awesome year for him. A- because, again, you know what? Although you look at a number like WRC plus being below average, but, you know, for his position that he plays to give that kind of power is not below average.
All right. El Troll. What do you got, Andy?
Yeah, I gave him a B+. Again, defense is better than advertising. And we said everyone was like, "Oh, his defense is awful," and he was at the beginning of his career, like what Frank said, he struggled offensively. He was like with the top 3 defensive metrics and everything that first couple of months. I don't know how it ended up at the end of the season, but again, having 25 homer power from the catching position, hell, again, how many guys in the graveyard we've had? Hell, I'll take a Mike Zunino-esque. You know what? He's gonna hit 30 homers a year. Give you good defense. Don't give a shit about his batting average, but he hits 30 homers. So if that's the kind of guy he's going to be, we'll take that every day of the week, especially at the catching position. And the defense was better than we expected. So to have a plus glove, plus power hitting catcher at 20, however, 21, 22, however old he's going to be, God knows what he's going to look like when he's in his prime. So good start. Again, like the, little bit more contact, but again, he's a rookie, he's a catcher, and especially with catchers, there's so much shit he has to go through on a day-to-day, basis compared to a shortstop, second baseman, whatever, third base. To see that offensive production in year one, it's a good start.
I love this guy. I really do. And I think that he's going to be fantastic for a long time. And every single sign of things that I've been worried about with him, because it's definitely a rarity to see a 21-year-old catcher come up, because the typical they're getting up here is 24, 25, and to see what he is doing at this level at only 21 years old and continuing to say that I want to get better, I want to continue to be a better player. I mean, and I believe it. This guy is one of the hardest workers on this team, and I think that the drive that this guy has, I think he definitely has he has an ego. He definitely has an ego, but he's got confidence and he backs it up. So, I mean, listen, he had the tough stretch. The younger players are going to have a tough stretch, but overall, as a hitter, the hitting profile we know is just so ridiculous, and we know the potential is so high. And even though he had his rough stretches, he had his streakiness, overall, 25 home runs from the catcher position. You don't get that often. Okay. And, that was exactly what we saw from Advertise. And we know that he can only get better. He's 21 years old. So overall, as a player, I'm excited. I really am excited for the future of this team with Francisco Alvarez behind the plate, because we have not seen a catcher like this. We have seen the exact opposite of just complete dog shit at this position for a long time. I want to hold off of the Piazza comparisons for a little bit, just because he's a Mets catcher that can hit. It's a pretty lazy comparison. But I think, overall, it was definitely a very impressive rookie year. And I'm very excited for the future with Francisco Alvarez. Now, as for the future that I'm not excited for, let's get to Brett Baty. Okay. I'm going to give it to Frank. I'm not even going to say anything. Frank, this one's just all yours first. Lay out whatever you want to lay out.
Yeah, overall for Baty, the grade is going to be a D-. And the big reason is the expectations. I've been told for years by a man who is part rhinoceros that Brett Baty is the guy at third base. He is going to be the future of third base. And in fairness to him, he is not the only one that has been high on Brett Baty. So have all the evaluators of Major League Baseball. Top 50 prospect, one of the best third base prospects in all of baseball. And yet we've seen him now. This is his second year in the league. I didn't see improvement. If anything, he looked even worse this year. And that is very concerning, because you passed up on Carlos Correa. You've passed on Matt Chapman in the past. Can you do it a second time when there is this uncertainty surrounding Brett Baty? Because what it comes down to is that, what is his thing? Like, what does he do well? Because on base percentage, not there. Hitting for average, not there. Not enough power. Not a good defender. Not a good runner. What are we? What is he going to do? That's what I really wonder. And my thing is, what are the Mets going to do? That's why I know. How do they feel about him? Because they did send him down again this year and then call him back up. So, are they even confident that he's the future at third base? So, to me, I think he's the biggest X factor on this whole team, because what are they going to do with that third base position? And we've talked about graveyards at catcher. So, looks like it's solved with Alvarez. Center field, solved with Nimmo. Third base, ever since Dave Wright's been gone, it's a graveyard. And right now, Brett Baty not looking like the savior so far. So, I need to know from someone who is the Baty enthusiast, talk me off the ledge here. Is he a guy? Can we trust him? Is he a starter? What does he do? Please tell me.
See, everything that he described there, what does he do well? That's just describing a bust. That's what I heard. So, Andrew, please defend yourself. Tell me something. Because we got the clips. We got the clips, motherfucker.
Yeah, and I'm not like you. When I'm wrong, I'm saying I'm wrong.
Because I'm gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I'm not you.
Me.
He's still on this
Is
Tyler
this for
McGinn? Of course not. Yeah, it's a D-. Again, it's closest to the F. Oh, he had a good last week. Cool. That's the only thing. That wasn't an F. Oh, he had a homer off Craig Kimbrell. That was fun. It's a D-. Again, nothing got better. Again, he goes down. He hits a couple of homers. Oh, that maybe that trip. Nope, comes back. The defense is gone. Like an average defense. No, he's literally Daniel Murphy in left field at this point at third base. He's just booting balls left and right. Again, I watched that ninth inning against the Marlins. Guy's not even looking at the glove. He's just looking at the runner. The fundamentals are gone. And everything that was in Syracuse and Binghamton, it's a shell of what the hell he was. Yes, the ground ball rate's always been the problem. We've said that shit since he's been drafted. But there's nothing this guy of what the guy we saw throughout the minor leagues. And hell, he's going to look great in Milwaukee.
Wow. You're really going to turn on your boy like that?
He blew me off 4 times in Kansas City. You know the rule. You blow me off, I don't give a fuck who you. They've said it with the fat guy at first base too. You blow me off 3 times, I don't give a fuck how much I love you. Fuck him. So
Wow.
he'll look good in Milwaukee.
Wow. See, this is why we don't plug in prospects. This is why we don't do this, right? Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Don't plug it in. I also gave him a D-. The only reason I didn't give him an F is probably because I saw him pull a home run in live. I don't know. Let me tell you one thing, okay? And I mean this. Out of every hitter that we have on this team, he has the worst hitting profile of all of them. I have never seen so many goddamn faults in an offensive game in my life from somebody who had such big expectation. This guy can't lift the ball. He can't pull the ball. His pick selection is dog shit. He can't hit a breaking ball. He chases. This guy, forget even pulling everything. This guy takes inside pitches the other way. The guy stinks. This guy is so goddamn bad. And I'm not going to give him any rookie excuses. I can't do that because like we said, like Frank just said, and I'll continue to add on to it. We didn't sign Carlos Correa because of the confidence in him. We signed Eduardo Escobar to be a bridge to him. We passed up on Matt Chapman. We didn't trade for Nolan Arenado. You can continue. 2019, first round pick, like I say, first round expectation. They put an even bigger spotlight on this guy. And this is how he performs. I just, again, could he improve? Sure, he can definitely improve. But this is kind of just what we've seen as the weaknesses. And he just looks completely overmatched. How come this guy is supposed to be the older, the older, younger player, right? Failed 5th grade, coming out of high school, 23 years old, compared to Francisco Alvarez, 21 years old, Mauricio, 22 years old. This guy was the first round pick. How come he looks completely overmatched compared to all of them? Like, I don't get it. I do not like Brett Beatty at all. I'm done. I don't want to see this guy. Unless he completely changes who he is, he's going to suck. End of story. Anything else you want to add on Brett Beatty? No? Okay. Now, let's talk about the last guy that fits the sample, and then we'll go to a guy who doesn't fit the sample, but we're going to talk about him anyway since we have not talked since his debut. Let's go to the light of my life, the greatest ever. Let's go to Kodai Senga. A remarkable rookie year for Kodai Senga. After the high risk that we saw, after all the expectations, from what we saw from Kodai Senga was fantastic. We know he's going to finish in the top 5 in Rookie of the Year. We know he's going to finish in top 5 in Cy Young. Probably not going to win either of them, but he had a fantastic year. The highlighted stuff. So, Frank, what do you got?
Yeah, for Senga, I mean, one of the very few A pluses. I mean, he was the Mets' lone representative in the All-Star team. And what I love the most is that as
Pete
a
was
rookie,
an All-Star. Hold up.
Wait,
They
what?
play?
Pete?
No, too fat.
Pete was an All-Star.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about that.
Hey, you're the All-Star guy. What the hell?
With his hand, he didn't feel like an All-Star at that time. But anyways,
No, you didn't. You're right.
Kodai Senga, what I love is that he improved as the year went on as a rookie. I think that, when you are a pitcher as a rookie, I feel like first time you face the team, you have the advantage because the hitters don't know what to expect, especially you have this new pitch, this ghost fork they don't know what's coming. But the fact that Senga continued to make adjustments and continue to get better as a rookie, I think that bodes really well for his future. And I'm looking forward to see what his career holds. I mean, is he really going to be an ace? Is he going to be a top 5, top 10 Cy Young guy every year? I sure hope so. I mean, that would be really encouraging. So I give an A+, very happy, able to limit the long ball. I always love that. So likewise from Senga, walks were a little high, but the strikeout stuff was awesome. So it ended up working out all in all. So very good year for one Kodai Senga.
All right. Andrew, how do you feel about Senga?
Yeah, that's the hell of a Jacob deGrom replacement. Again, all-star, top 5 in Cy Young, top 2 in Rookie of the Year. Again, obviously Corbin Carroll is going to run away and hide with that, and I guess Blake Snell runs away with the National.
He just never knows when to stop talking.
Excuse me. You miss your never shut, Jeff. But yeah, A+. Again, for being a guy that our expectations, we didn't know what the hell we were getting. We heard, the walk problem, which was a problem in some starts, but overall wasn't astronomical. There was some starts, obviously, like every pitcher, the walks were an issue, but we were told that's the big issue, and he, again, learned the American style of ball great. Again, it came over better than anyone could have thought. We would have got, hey, give me a sub-4 ERA, rookie, first season in the big leagues. Okay, we'll take that. You make the all-star team, you're going to finish top 2 in Cy Young and Rookie of the Year and top 5 in Cy Young. I mean, those blow out any expectation that any of us, even the most diehardest Senga fan from Japan coming over, could have expected. So to be a guy that is a building block, we'll see if there's another one he could potentially lure over and be a top 2 monster on the top of the rotation. It's going forward, but I'm also terrified in 2 years he's going to opt out because $15 million a year for this type of guy ain't going to last long.
Yeah. I'm also giving it the A+. This is your ace. It's your ace. He's going to be an ace. I mean, I have never seen an off-speed pitch be so goddamn dominant in my life. Not only is this like the best off-speed pitch, it's the best pitch in all of baseball in terms of all dominance. That's how how groundbreaking he was this year to just come in here, not even know the language, not even know anything, adjust to what he had to adjust to, and he turned in just a fantastic rookie year. There's so much that I can say about him, but we're in past 3 hours at this point. So what I will say right here is there were so many times when I was expecting him to break, and he didn't. He never did. There were times where he lost control of the strike zone and you expected him to break. You expected a blow-up inning. It never came. It never freaking came. And it really just comes from, how well, I feel like just how well they do train these pitchers in Japan because they have the ridiculous talent. But, he's also 30 years old. He's a veteran. So it's a veteran rookie out there. It was just a different breed of a rookie season. And for somebody to come over from Japan, to come over, to a new country and, learn new rules as well. You got the pitch clock now. We'll see what happens with his innings. Obviously, that's something that we can't, we'll see if he still goes with the every 6th day, something like that. We know that Stearns did a 6-man rotation in Milwaukee, so we'll see. But no, this was the, I watched every single start from start to finish, and I think he was fantastic. And I'm really excited. And to be honest, I hope if he has another year next year, I hope they rip up that contract, give him a new one. Go ahead, do it. He has been fantastic. He was fantastic in Japan, and now he comes over and translates it here. You might as well. And he's 30, but he's not, like our supposed aces this year. He's not 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay. Final one to talk about. It is the last edition this year. He came up in the September call-ups, and that is the long-awaited call-up of Ronnie Mauricio. Now, I personally think he should have been called up way earlier, maybe at the All-Star break. but they wanted to have the service time bullshit, of course. Overall, we know of the ceiling of Ronnie Mauricio. We've known it for a long time, but we got a decent sight of it in September. So, Frank, what do you think about Mauricio?
Yeah, for Mauricio, I gave him a C. Like you, I wanted to see him called up a lot sooner in the season, especially the way the season was going for the Mets. I do understand the whole service time thing, but I hope that next year he does get a true chance to win a starting job, whether that's at third or second or just somewhere on the field. I feel like he just has that potential that he could do big things for you. So let him just give him a chance. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what he's got. Let's see what he has on the major league level because I just want to know what he's going to be long term. I mean, is he going to be a starter for this team? Is he going to be a utility guy? Is he going to be traded? I mean, these are the questions that you have to start to answer once you are on the major league roster every single day. So again, it stinks that he got caught up so late. We saw a couple of flashes, but I feel there just wasn't enough to really make a full evaluation and put a true mark on how good or bad he is or exactly what kind of player he is on the major league level. I mean, we saw him do a bunch of tremendous things on the minor league level all season long. Obviously, minor league, major league, two completely different things. So I want to see some of that transfer over to the big leagues because he does have a lot of potential.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think we're all kind of on the same thing of just giving him a C. Again, sample size, only 180 AB. You see some good. Offensively, seen him watch a couple pop-ups, but again, it's a rookie. I'm not going to go nuts about it. Give him a C. Again, have him battling. Again, having all these guys battle for second base. I'd rather have him at second base than McNeil. I've said that just from a small sample. Hits homers, and he has a chance to, the right-handed ABs haven't been great, but 110 against the Phillies it's CBP, yes, but he has that ability. So I'll give him a C, and then again, battling for about 3 different positions that he could potentially be playing. So, and I'd also just let him have one, either give him second, give him third, and be done. I hate this again. Everybody's playing everywhere. Like, I give versatility is nice. Like, can we just have guys play their positions? Stop moving everybody around. So he's at second, he's at third, he's at the DH, and just be done.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with a C with the go neutral because I mean we just haven't seen much yet. But we've seen a lot of encouraging things. We've seen some things that kind of are things he's got to work on. I don't like him from the right side. I never really did. I just think his lower half's just very unbalanced and it just looks weird. But could there be a time where they Cedric Mullins his ass and make him bat lefty? Maybe. But he displays ridiculous power from both of those sides when he's on. And I'd like to see a lot more, obviously. We saw him full on showcased in spring training this year. I mean, it looked like, maybe he was going to make the roster and he didn't. And then they just kind of dragged it all the way out to September call-up. So he needs to see a lot more. But I'm very excited for Mauricio. I'm excited for Alvarez. Vientos, we'll see what happens. There is some upside. Beatty can go fuck himself. But other than that, I think that wraps up the grades for everything. I guess we'll just close it out. I did not expect this to take as long as it did, but we've been off for a while, so I guess 3 hours of content works to make up for it. We're going into the offseason. It is officially David Stearns' team. He has taken over. Buck is gone. And hopefully a few of these players are gone as well. But other than that, the season is done. We will have some stuff going on in the offseason, obviously. I'm still trying to figure some stuff out. I've had other projects I've been working on that have nothing to do with the Mets that have needed my attention recently. So I've just been kind of scattered in and out. But I'm sure that we'll do, maybe a few live streams throughout the next few weeks, something like that. And, we'll get the podcast up again. But we'll figure all that stuff out. But other than that, final words of how you feel about the season. And we're just going to put this thing completely to bed because this season was a complete nightmare. Andrew.
Yeah, again, just on to the next one. Now, maybe this is the chapter. We start the new book, the Stearns book. Chapter 1. Let's see what he does in the offseason.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in total agreement. This was a really rough year, very disappointing year, but hopefully, having Stearns in here, new manager, let the young guys play. You got rid of the old veterans of the rotation. You got any new guys rotation. You got any new guys in line with all the expired pieces that left, like we talked about with Escobar and Canha and guys like that. And we'll see how it's with Marte. So looking for just the Mets need a big refresh. So you need a lot of new pieces on this team to hopefully get some new results. So that's what I'm looking forward to, talking about who those new pieces should be, reacting to those new pieces that they get. So offseason is a fun time for content creation, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what Stearns has cooking.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that his press conference is tomorrow. Are they introducing him still? And I saw that it was officially official that the Mets will not be playing that extra inning against the Marlins. So we played 161 and 8 innings this year, and to be honest, it was 161 and 8 innings more than I could handle. This season was not fun. There were some bright spots, but there was a lot of low spots. And it was just a regression year, and I did not like it. But overall, that's it. That's all I got. There are player grades, obviously. If we missed anybody, too bad.
I don't think we did. As long as we won,
I don't think we
covered
did.
Everybody.
I think we talked about every single person possible. But yeah, Buck Showalter, good riddance. Thanks for the last 2 years. They weren't that fun. And more Mets content coming soon as the offseason transpires. So we'll see you guys next time. Like the stream if you have not already. Subscribe. All of our links are in the description. You guys know the drill by now. Let's go Mets. And on to the next year. Wait till next year. We'll win it. Don't worry.